It's uncut, it's unfiltered. This is the show of shows. This is the biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred.
Speaking his mind.
I've never had a problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way.
Exploring hot topics.
Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do.
And spreading the gospel of drag racing.
I respect the history. I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. This is the great American motorsport, drag racing.
The Wes Buck Show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Hey gang, what's up? Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in. It is Wednesday, March 2nd, 2022, and it is time to talk a little bit of drag racing. First off, I cannot thank you guys enough for joining us, whether you're tuning in on Facebook, YouTube, listening on Apple, iTunes, or some other podcast platform. Please thank you from the bottom of my heart. Please know how much it means to us that you're here. You join us each and every Wednesday to talk drag racing. And man, we've got a deadly duo for you guys today. We've got heavy hitter, a couple of them. Oh my goodness. We've got Ken Cartuccio, fresh off a win at the biggest small tire drag race in the world. Donald Long's Lights Out 13 down at South Georgia Motorsports Park, just north of the Florida border. We also, I was going to call him Ken the Serial Killer Cartuccio, but I don't know how serious they are about that nickname. I don't know if that's his nickname. I don't know if that's the car's nickname. We'll get into that later today. We also will be joined by Top Fuel pilot Mike Salinas. He's just days removed from a huge win to get his 2022 season started on the right foot out at the NHRA Arizona Nationals. Very, very exciting and a really, really impressive. Kind of with all that happened this past offseason, it was kind of a come out of left field moment. I don't know that anybody was pointing at Mike Salinas to win a whole bunch of races early in the season, as there was a little bit of crew chief dance, a carousel of guys moving and swapping around teams. Mike Salinas, the Scrappers Racing team, they actually did a little bit of a crew chief swap with the gang at Coletta Motorsports. Rob Flynn joined Scrappers Racing, of course, this is well known, and Alan Johnson, Brian Hewson leave Scrappers Racing and join the fold there at Coletta Motorsports. But I don't know that anybody was pointing at Mike Salinas to be the guy that raised a bunch of eyebrows early in the season. I think we were waiting to see how things would shake out. Would they recover from that move? How would Rob Flynn do in that role after all the moving around and getting accustomed to a new team? Well, clearly, the proof's in the pudding. They had a heck of a weekend out there in Arizona. We'll be talking with them, I believe, if I'm correct, and I don't have any notes in front of me, unfortunately, but I believe Ken Cartuccio will be joining us to kind of round out the first hour of today's episode. And then a little into the second hour of the show, we'll be joined by Mike Salinas. Of course, I got the boys with me, Mikey C and Murder T. What's going on, guys? How goes it?
What's up, man? But new nicknames for everybody. I like that. We got Bionic Buck for you. How's that?
Let's see the arm here, man. It's kind of how it feels, man.
Everybody wants to know how the arm is doing.
I got to tell you guys though, how crazy is it that it's the second day of March, right? Like it's that time again where all of a sudden there's more drag. People look at me and they're like, "Man, you guys do a 3-hour show every week." Well, this is why. Because you can't talk about it all. Like I guarantee you, we will be signing off this afternoon, high-fiving everyone, hugging, and finishing up the show, and there will be things that we didn't talk about. Am I wrong?
For sure. March comes up on you fast, dude. Yep. And the season is upon us in full swing with Gainesville coming up in 2 weeks. To me, that's really the kickoff. The East Coast opener, whatever you want to call it, but that race is huge.
The NHRA Gator Nationals for me. And I'm not trying to say this to shortchange anything that's happened so far in 2022. Obviously, a lot of big races, but I'm the same way, man. It's the start of the NHRA Pro Mod season. It's no secret that I'm a big Pro Mod guy. We're big Pro Mod guys collectively, and that has always been the start for me. But I think about, and let's just take a minute. I'm not saying we need to do a moment of silence. Scratch that. We won't do a moment of silence. I thought about it, but I want to just wax poetic momentarily because think about this, and I will do this and include you guys in this. And real quick, I do want to remind everybody, smash that like button, smash that share button. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. We need you to be a part of this movement. I got to tell you guys, how about this? Think about this. Just this past weekend, seriously, Drag Illustrated, your boys here, right? We had team members and girls, sorry Nancy, sorry Caroline, sorry Paige, boys and girls, your boys and girls here at Drag Illustrated. We had people, team members. We had Josh Hatchett and Dion Walrath out at the NHRA Arizona Nationals in Phoenix, Arizona. New photographer Bob, right? New photog Bob. 3 team members in Arizona. We had Chris Sears and Van the Man, Handsome Vansome, the one and only. Everybody loves Van Abernathy down on the scene.
These meds they're giving you for the arm. It's just
right? I'm wound up like a physical woodpecker, bro.
Is rampant nicknaming.
Rampant nicknaming. I think nicknames are important. I really do. I latch on to stuff like that. But Handsome Vansome and Chris Sears down on the property at South Georgia Motorsports Park for the biggest small tire drag race in the world. Lights Out 13. Hard to believe that deal's been around for 13 years. But anyways, we also had editor-in-chief Nate Van Wagenen, no nickname there. Nitro Nate. What am I talking about? He's the original nickname guy. Nitro Nate down at Bradenton Motorsports Park for Sport Compact Evolution, doing a little popping and banging, spinning some front wheels.
Hey, that's big for us too.
Dude, it was huge, man. Being at a big import race.
In that stuff for years, right?
Literally every every offseason, when we go to any of the trade shows, when we go out west to SEMA, or we head to Indianapolis for PRI, we always have someone in our ear like, man, there's big things happening in the sport compact world. Like, this isn't over. This is still going on. And we saw proof of that this past weekend during Victor Alvarez's sport compact evolution. And I mean, we also, not an official part of the team, but a longtime contributor, Corey Stamper and the guys at Spooled Media, right? They're out there at Darlington Dragway for the Palmetto No Prep, the back of the track shootout that he throws, actually, creating and capturing content for us. I mean, we had people at like 4 or 5 different races this past weekend. And I'm not out here trying to get a pat on the back, but I want you guys, I want my team to know we're doing big things. I think it's unheard of, to be honest with you guys. I really do. I think it's completely unheard of to see a singular media outlet covering things across the United States. I mean, somebody better have a stiff drink ready for me when I get my credit card bill this month. Because that,
for sure.
I mean, holy shit, man. That thing is going to be like, it's going to be thick. It's going to be probably delivered to me in a binder.
The rest of the team was plugged in as well. I mean, we had the Slack channel just burning up. We had 2 TVs on and watching different races and everybody commenting. And
the three of us weren't at any race. We kind of felt left out, right? So, but
two things. Two things. I mean, you're right. I told Mike about this yesterday, and I was like, man, I was just so proud of us. Like, we're all these different events, and we were well represented in all these different places, and we got all these great people involved. And we preach this too. You hear it, any team owner that we bring on here, any business owner that we bring on here, hell, probably any racer that we bring on here, the message is quite consistent that the people that you're surrounded by make all the difference. Like, the people on your team, the people that are in the foxhole with you, they make the difference. And I was so proud of what took place this past weekend. And when I told Mike's like, yeah, man, I started kind of beating myself up and feeling bad. Like, shit, I need to go to Mooresville or something. I need to go to a racetrack. But in all fairness, that was kind of the beauty of it, man. I hurt myself, and I was getting a little bit concerned. Like, I don't know that I'm going to be able to travel here in the next couple of months as much as I want to. This deal is a little bit, hand to God, I did not think this was going to be as big of a deal as it was. I thought it was like, no big deal. I'll be out and about doing my normal thing. And now they've got me like literally, that's it. That's all it'll let me move. That's it, right? And I'm going
work on some robot dance moves.
I know, but I was genuinely concerned. And when I told you about it yesterday, I'm going, I think that's actually the beauty of this, that we've got such a strong group of people here that even though we were at home and watching along online, great time for Flow Racing to show up over my shoulder. I mean, I was tuned in all weekend long. I had the Lights Out stream going all weekend long. I had NHRA's app playing on my Roku on my television so I could watch the NHRA race. What a time to be alive, right?
Thrilled by that. By the way, they love that. They're working on ways to try to like hack the server that those apps run on.
My wife can tell what I'm watching by the announcer. She's like, she'll hear Reinhardt, or I really had her spun out. I think it was Saturday. There was a lot going on at once. And I had Reinhardt's in one ear, and I had the guys down there at Valdosta in my other ear, and all this noise going on. And it was a little bit seizure inducing. I apologize, but they dealt with it. They played along. And I got to be honest, there's always this talk online, and let's talk about this briefly before we get into the many other topics we've got to discuss. We really are lucky for everybody that loves to get on the internet, and that the internet has almost become a place almost exclusively to be mad about something, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. But everybody gets on and bags about, it's not loading. It's I don't care. My experience with Flow Racing this weekend was really positive. My experience with almost every one of these platforms has been really positive because I remember what it was like to buy a VHS tape from Scott Caudill out there on the East Coast and pay $40 for it or whatever, $7.99 to have it priority mailed to me for a big dog race or a Don Plemons Quick 8 race because I wanted to see what happened. I had to plug that VHS tape in. I mean, we're so spoiled. We're so spoiled. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of like the masses to complain about being able to watch drag racing live as it's happening from the comfort of your own home without having to buy a ticket. I mean, go back to what I was just talking about. We probably spent, God only knows how much money we spent. I don't even know. I don't want to know. And I hope Nancy never tells me how much we spent this past weekend going to races. This shit's expensive. Airfare's higher than it's ever been. Probably hotels are higher than it's ever been. Probably gas prices are up $1 right now from where they were last year. I mean, this is a tough time to do business out here, right?
That's what it takes is the willingness to make that investment. Because I was going to say, there's two parts to that deal we talked about earlier, and being proud of having everyone at all of these events. It takes the investment to get everyone there, and then the willingness and enthusiasm of everyone to want to be a part of our group and contribute to what we're doing here. So it's kind of a perfect storm when we're able to align all those things, and we're able to really make some hay as far as what we're covering. But it takes both sides.
And you're going to have mess ups. I mean, it's just going to happen, right? I mean, the NHRA, you know,
right? it happens.
Whose stream went down the first weekend.
All the time.
You know, and then they lost. They didn't have a link to it. You know, I mean, you had to contact customer service.
If you could see what goes into making these productions happen, you would have more of an appreciation of it. That may be something we need to do, behind the scenes of what it takes to get NHRA TV or a flow racing broadcast, especially these tracks. Have you ever been to a drag strip and had good cell signal?
You're right.
I don't think those two things don't go together. You basically enter a drag strip gates and lose all internet connectivity.
I mean, think about Warren Evans. I got to give some kudos to Warren Evans. He actually let us latch on to his Wi-Fi during Sick Week when we were down in Gainesville and we did the show a couple of weeks ago. Warren Evans is in here with it looks like he could launch a spaceship with the control pad and everything that he had and all these switches of various colors and different sizes. It was massively impressive. And he was providing the live stream during Sick Week, resetting this whole rigmarole up at every event, you know, every track they went to. And I'm thinking to myself, outstanding job. Yep. But my point is, even the bad ones are pretty good. Like, I was watching Corey Stamper's race live from somebody's iPhone, and it was pretty damn good. I mean, think about what our buddy, the NC Pro Modder, does, right? Going around all over the country, traveling, pulling his motorhome behind his trailer. What do you call it?
3 phones.
He's got 3 phones going.
And cool pads.
And the quality's pretty damn good, right? I mean, it's way better than that VHS tape I used to have to pay $25, $30, $40 for and wait a month to get. I mean, I just think that sometimes somebody needs to grab our entire industry by the shoulders and just shake the shit out of them, like my dad used to do to me. You know what I mean? Just grab everybody and just shake them. Because, think about where we're at right now. Not the fact that there were 77 different races going on this weekend, paying good money, doing good things, providing a safe atmosphere and a safe place to race for all these people, not to mention the stands being packed at a bunch of these events. The fact that that's happening, but the fact that it's happening and people can watch all around the world from the comfort of their own home via their smart device, a tablet, a cell phone. I mean, I was watching my Roku. Shout out to Roku. Maybe they could sponsor us. But I was watching the Flow Racing app and NHRA TV's app on my big screen, right? Like the same television that I watch Yellowstone on. I was watching NHRA drag racing on live as it was happening, not 10 hours later, not the Thursday after. I was watching this stuff as it unfolded. And I just think of how lucky we are in the fact that I've ever seen a crossword said about this stuff. I would gladly trade anybody their $150 or their $99. You know what I mean? Versus what we spent as a company going to a dozen different races this past weekend. I don't know. I see people buying $5 cans of energy drinks. I see people buying, all whatever else.
Don't feel attacked, JT.
I'm not. I drink them too. I drink them too. I do. I drink me some sugar-free Red Bull. I drink me some sugar-free Monster energy drink. Trying to
climb out the walls.
Oh yeah, JT for his. This isn't actually a funny little side nugget here. For all the alcohol he can drink, homeboy cannot handle caffeine. Okay. He can drink a gallon of Captain Morgan's and be fine, literally. But if you give this dude 2 Diet Cokes or 2 cups of coffee, he's up for 3 days.
That's crazy,
isn't it?
That's what we did to him. He got a lot done on Sick Week, and I think it's because we were pumping caffeine at him. At one point, he was just locked in. So that must have been the secret.
Yeah, you'd go silent for like an hour in the back of the truck while we were driving to the next stop. And I look back there and I'm like, man, I wouldn't have had you all come if I was just going to be in silence. This sucks. Can't you guys make fun of me or something like normal?
Watch the road when you're driving.
Oh, whatever.
I got like blinders on. Wes is like got one knee on the wheel, he's texting.
People text a lot, man. It's a lot to keep up with, bro. I'm a mogul. No, I'm just joking. But for real though, to bitch about this at all is bananas. I mean, seriously, I get it. And, I know that I'm blessed and I know that we're blessed. But I mean, I look at the racing industry, all of this stuff is expensive. I don't care if you're racing a motorcycle, a junior dragster, a top fuel dragster, or somewhere in between. This deal is expensive. And the fact that you can spend $100 on NHRA TV and watch every race live, plus all the other races, all these old stuff, all these other little things they do. The fact that you can spend $150 and subscribe to Flow Racing and watch all of that. I mean, they've got races on all the time, even other types of racing.
And sports.
And sports or whatever. Yeah. And I'm not trying to this isn't a sales pitch.
No, not at all.
This is a reality check, folks. I mean, this is literally, we need to hear this. Be a part of the solution, man. Be thankful for what we have because it is incredible. Because personally, we started this magazine at Drag Illustrated. We kicked our doors open in October of 2005. This is 16 years ago. This is before, YouTube booming and Facebook. I mean, you had to have a .edu email address to even be on Facebook, right? When we started this magazine, I didn't have an account. And if you were an insider, that meant you were on some forums. You know what I mean? Like that's how you got the inside information. And to think about all the stuff that we just talked about, how readily available the sport of drag racing is, complaining about it is completely insane. This is, of course, these technologies are going to fail. Mike called me Monday. We were going to have some sort of powwow. And I was mad for a half hour because I couldn't get my AirPods to connect, wasn't I? Yeah. I was all pissed off about it. Couldn't get my AirPods to connect to my phone because they were already connected to my iPad or my freaking laptop or whatever. I mean, like, repeat that. That's silly. Wes, come on, man. I mean, how much do you want of this technology? And I kind of look at our entire space and go, guys, gals, let's calm down. The fact that this is even possible is very, 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 very impressive.
It came out in a magazine, right? Or newsletter or whatever.
Absolutely, man. That's why National Dragster was like the Bible of drag racing for so long, is because it's how you had to stay in the loop. They printed one a week, I think 48 issues a year in their heyday. And it's like, that's how you kind of stayed connected to the sport of drag racing. Now, I mean, not to mention, there's still National Dragster. There's also Drag Illustrated, right? There's Drag Racing Scene, and there's all these Competition Plus and Drag Zine. And I mean, there's all these places to absorb drag racing content, right? Not to mention all these live streaming things. So I was really blown away, as bummed out as I was this weekend about my arm and not being able to travel, because I had plans of going to Lights Out. But to be able to watch it all unfold, like play by play, round after round, good or bad, late or early, I just felt very fortunate. I felt very grateful for all these people that are spending this money, all the sponsors that support these services, all the people that bounce around and do it, spend their own money to do it. It's pretty damn impressive, man. It really, really, really is.
I'm surprised that Flow and NHRA app doesn't send more push notifications.
Yeah, I think this is the most exciting thing, and I reiterate this to our team a lot. You guys have heard me say this. The coolest thing about drag racing right now is the fact that this sport has been around for 70 years and there's still so much to do. Right. There's still so much room for growth. I don't think that can be said with NFL. I don't think that can be said with NASCAR. I don't think that can be said with Formula One. I don't think that can be said with Major League Baseball or NBA. I mean, obviously, all of them have room for improvement and room to grow, but I personally don't think they have this is fertile soil we're walking on here in drag racing. I mean, there's a long way for us to go as a sport and as a community, as an industry, which is really freaking exciting. And I think you're right, T. The moment when they get to the point where, because I've got human push notifications, I've got Dion Walrath out there in the staging lanes and
us on Slack. We're all like
in Phoenix, and I'm like, hey man,
it's hard to pay attention, and then you miss it, and you're like, shit, what happened? You know,
we do that. We all jump at our channel,
right? Yeah.
I text Dion and be like, hey man, when Pro Stock's in the lanes, text me so I know to turn it on. Or, hey, RVW or Limited Drag Radial's up. And JT throws it in Slack, like, hey, LDR's up. Whenever that meets one of these apps, one of these streaming services, it's going to be bananas. And I've actually thought about doing it ourselves. There's so many text messaging apps that, matter of fact, I think we should do it. Like, I don't mean to like let the cat out of the bag, but like, let's spend the next 30 days and figure that out, guys. Like, we'll promote it here on the show, text us, and we will text you when significant things happen on any of these streaming platforms. Because we're not married to any of them. We're obviously married to Flow. We have a great relationship with those guys, but we would happily, spread the gospel of drag racing no matter what it is.
Mike's cell phone number in the chat here.
Put Mike's direct number.
Yep.
Don't you think we could pull that off? That's not hard. That technology is readily available.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. That's the next step, like you said.
We've got a lot of racing to cover, and I know that in about 15 minutes, we're going to be joined by the one and only Ken Cartuccio, fresh off a huge win at Lights Out 13. I think let's just start there, guys. JT, throw it to full screen on the three of us. Let's all join the party here, and we'll start diving into we've got a lot to cover on Phoenix as well. Where do you guys want to start? Mike, I'm going to let you pick. Do you want to start with Lights Out? There's a lot of storylines there.
Let's start there.
Okay, let's start with Lights Out. First off, overall impression. I mean, we can go around the room. I think that this was like it felt like this was, and maybe not entirely for all the right reasons, but there was a lot of social media fodder about Lights Out 13, and it kind of felt good. It felt like it had been a minute since there had been this much buzz. And I mean, I think some of it was, there were some issues or whatever, and people were fired up about this, that, and the other. But there was a lot of positive things as well. Just people excited to see this brand of racing kind of getting the season started. We saw some big runs. We saw a lot of controversy. It was an interesting year or an interesting running of this event. I think I'll dive right into all these comments about the track prep. And as someone who's been involved with a lot of drag racing events, I've put them on, I've run racetracks, I've been around this for a long time. I refuse to throw the track prep guys under the bus. It's too hard to work. It's too backbreaking a job.
At that race specifically, it's the expectations.
It is. The expectations, it's not the track. It's the expectations.
Yeah, that is the
really,
problem.
Really is. And I do think we're going to have to, at some point, face this issue head on. Is that we've got to find some sort of happy medium, right? We've got to find some sort of middle ground, because I don't think it's realistic to run these cars exclusively at night. I really don't. And
early or late in the year.
Early and late in the year. Or we're going to have to kind of allow it to just be this once, twice a year special circumstances deal. But that's problematic.
Or we're going to have a bunch of qualifying runs in the conditions where we're not racing. But that was kind of a big deal too, and it is what it is. But I mean, if you're going to race in these conditions, then have your qualifiers somewhat in those conditions too, I would think.
Because I think that was, I talked to a handful of racers over the course of the last few days, right? And that was a lot of what I was hearing, is that the issue that they felt existed, and nobody really wants to be the one that comes out and say this stuff. I mean, obviously there's some.
I will, man. It was hard to watch that race. I mean, nobody was getting down side by side. It was just hard to watch.
Chris Sears has a good point here. Some great pedal fest races. I agree with that, but you only get that on Sunday. You only get that in eliminations. We're not doing that in qualifying. And that race is very heavy on qualifying. So I just think that the expectations of it, and this is where we are with, and what our argument is with radial racing being such a niche deal that you can only race at before noon or after 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. and only early and late in the year. And that to me limits that, especially RVW. It's why that class is in the position it's in. And I think the focus has shifted to the other classes that we've talked about.
And we've said this for a long time, but it's a damn shame that race is not finished on Saturday night, or at least your headline classes, in front of that huge fucking crowd. It's ended up finishing on Sunday in front of, less
a crowd.
A crowd, but I mean, it's packed to the gills,
dude. I mean, and that was one of the things, like looking at those photos of the grandstands, and I know like it's polarizing, the blue and green paint, but I mean, like, dude, it was covered up. I mean, that place was packed. And say what you want, but there were a lot of race fans down there on the property at South Georgia Motorsports Park. And it's impressive to draw that kind of crowd so consistently I mean, it really is rare
nice
air
to give him a
in the
show,
sport of
though.
drag racing. And I agree with you. That's where I was headed.
And that's
because
where the scrutiny came from.
When
and
it's packed out
on social media.
When it's packed out, I think that you've got to deliver the goods, right? And we saw some big runs. I mean, it would be criminal not to talk about Jason Lee. I actually spent some time on the phone earlier this week with Eric Gustafson, who also drives that car, owns the team. Wonderful guy. But what a deal, man. I mean, and I said this to him, and I'll say it here and now. Thank God that run happened, because it really, that was like the Herculean, the big thing that Lights Out has always produced, whether it was a car, Dwayne Mills, vertical, all the Stevie Jackson flying through the air. That race is so well known and so closely associated with like a singular thing. It's not about, I mean, it is, but it's not about everything that happened. It's about the one thing that happened. And I think, thank God Jason Lee made that 349 run, because this year's running, if we're talking turkey and we're being candid and honest here, I think we would have felt, despite some great racing, a huge congrats, obviously, to Ken Cartuccio for winning RVW. And I thought we saw some great racing, saw some records set and some big runs in X275, Pro 275. We saw our buddy Woody go some rounds. I mean, limited drag radial. I mean, what a show those guys put on. I mean, I think
cars.
I mean, tons of cars, really closely packed together. Huge shout out to everybody involved with that deal. Jason Ruckert, Tyler Cross Snow, John Sears. I mean, that class, I've got a completely separate argument to make about LDR, and I will in a second. But thank God that moment happened. Thank God we saw Jason Lee go that 349. But I'm going to ask you this, Mike, as a racer yourself and someone who's probably made that walk to the tower alongside your dad, Charles Carpenter, or somebody to like complain or to have an issue, right? Is it hard to make an argument about the track when you see a guy go 349, right? Because I mean, you saw it on social media. Like as soon as it happened, Donald Long's posting it on social, take a bite out of that 349.
And is that
nobody complained
enough for the rest of it to not be there?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
We always said, I mean, in our experience, you couldn't go by just one car. You had to look at the average. You had to look at the rest of the field. And that's even harder to say in radial racing, because it's all or nothing. It's home run or we're spinning the tires as soon as the car's moving. So it's hard to say. And I just think, like you said, these races, a lot of times we even struggle to remember who won. And it's all about, like you said, Dwayne Mills or Stevie or somebody flying through the air or some other crazy moment or a record. And if that doesn't happen, then we're left kind of going, well, what stood out about this year's event? And it goes back to our whole argument about radial racing being the home run hitting, less focus on racing. It's just not sustainable. And the whole part where the expectations of the track prep are such that what we saw this weekend, I mean, that used to happen quite a bit. That used to happen back in the day whenever, if maybe even they switched traction compounds. Maybe there was a new tire compound that Goodyear came out with and everyone was trying to get a hold of.
Yeah.
You've seen these things happen, but it's unacceptable now. And now we're going to rage on the internet. And, I can see both sides of it, but I just think that the expectations and where that kind of racing has gone creates that situation. And it's something that I think both sides are going to have to deal with and figure out which way to move forward. I think we've already seen Donald do that a little bit with the radial series that he's got going. So there are already some things in motion to address it, in my opinion. But this is also why I think no prep kings, even just traditional slick tire pro mod racing has come back around.
I really agree, man.
When you put those, I mean, and I guess some of the complaints would probably be because there's so much track prep that, and they're still blowing the tires off, right? So we've sat and waited for 20 minutes and they're still
but it's because those cars don't detune them. They can't detune them.
Yeah, I get it. But it's like, and I guess you don't realize, I mean, I realized this weekend you had both races up, on the big screen. You have NHRA over here and you got Lights Out over here. And it's amazing. Like we've already ran through two classes here. We've ran one car over here.
I will tell you, and this is a great opportunity to kind of, I saw somebody say on social, and JT, you and I have talked about this a lot. I saw a comment on social that radial racing is missing some of their stars, right? Because
we talked about that. Yes, yeah.
You know, they're missing some of their Keith Berrys, they're missing the Stevie Fast Jacksons, they're missing Dwayne Mills, they're missing Mark Mickey, they're missing a lot of these guys that were really willing dance partners, guys that were willing to do the interviews, to be somewhat outspoken or to kind of embrace their personality, or what have you. But I heard people saying things like, well, they've moved on, or they've left this behind. I think that we have to recognize, and it was never more apparent than it was this past weekend, dude, the NHRA is the big leagues. We have to quit. There is an ongoing kind of screwed up identity crisis that I think exists pretty much everywhere below the NHRA, that like, we're just like them. Our deal's just as good as that, or we're almost as big as the NHRA. No, you're not. No, you're not.
And NHRA does an incredible job of managing that number of cars and running that number of classes under a tight schedule, a TV schedule. The way they're able to do that is
impressive. Yeah,
is highly underrated. And that's what your point that you started this conversation about, that's what you're seeing.
It is. And
they're the best.
And you don't realize it though until like, I guess I never really paid that much attention until, I mean, I knew that it's a little slow, you know, and I love radio racing. I always have, but you know, when you had them side by side, it's really apparent.
Well, that's how national events were always run, man. I can remember the car in front of you is staging. Like as soon as that thing breaks the beams, the guy's telling you to start your burnout. You're like, you know, let's maybe to make sure.
Let's let him make the turn, right? Let's let him make the turn off, you know. But that's really what is required, right? I mean, that's what I think is required, you know, for the NHRA to be the NHRA. But I do get a little frustrated because I think that people want to believe or want to tell themselves, and it's hard to argue with them because it's like dealing with an athlete. I think you have to think you're the best in the world, right? I think you have to think you're the best in the world. You know, if you're an up and coming boxer, your record may not reflect that you're the best in the world, but you have to believe it yourself. But I think that there's like a fine line between high level confidence and high level self-belief and being delusional, right? Like have a completely warped perspective. And I mean, and the fact of the matter is the NHRA is drag racing's professional leagues. It's the pro level series. And I think that we have to accept that there's a place for all these other different types of racing. And I'm not trying to say they don't matter or they're not as significant, but I do think that we have to at some point kind of recognize that they're doing things at an extremely high level. They've been doing them for a really, really, really long time. And for some series or sanction or singular event to pop up and be around for even 10 or 15 years or 2 years or whatever, and try to contend or go toe to toe with that, it's just not going to happen.
What you're seeing too, JT, like that comparison is these other series, NHRA is viewed sometimes as not being racer friendly. And it's things like that, like rushing you through, you know, rushing the turnaround, making sure that everything's on schedule is viewed as not being racer friendly. These other series and races that are individual deals are usually built on come race with us. We're racer friendly. So some of that includes, we'll let you take as long as you need to get your car fired up and back up. And if, you know, I mean, the whole deal, and that's viewed as being more racer friendly at the sacrifice of the show.
And it's tough because you can't have it both ways. Right.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part is it's like, okay, are we going to be, you know, outlaw and kind of loosey-goosey and re-prep the track in the middle of a round of racing and, you know what I mean, decide to rerun and that's all well and good. But if we're going to do those things, we also have to accept the fact that this is a tier below pro level drag racing that's happening, you know, that happened this past weekend at the NHRA Arizona Nationals, right? I mean, it's just a different level of drag racing. There's no doubt about it. And it doesn't mean, you know, that these other things aren't significant.
At the end of the day, though, I still want to see some good side-by-side passes in racing. You know,
that's what they've got to figure out. That's what they've got to figure out about that deal. But our next guest can shed some more insight on it for us.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm excited right now because I admittedly do not know or haven't known this gentleman very well, but I feel like I've rapidly gotten to know him over the course of the last month or so. I think you know who I'm talking about. Drag Illustrated's inaugural Outlaw Racer of the Year, winner of Radio vs. the World, a big victory that has kind of eluded him throughout his career. Got the job done this past weekend down at SGMP, the one and only Ken Cartuccio. Ken, welcome to the show, man.
How you doing, guys?
What's up, Ken?
What's up, Ken?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We should have given him a rousing applause. Let me do that again. Ladies and gentlemen, the
Boys
one,
and girls.
the only, Ken Cartuccio. Yeah, what's up? Oh my God. I can't believe you're here. Dude, I know you're probably doing all sorts of media tours and publicity outings, hardly leave your house.
Tonight show later
the
tonight.
Tonight
right?
Show,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Good Morning America tomorrow morning. Is that correct?
Paparazzi
Like that?
camped out front, right? This guy just won Radio vs. the World. I know you're contending with a lot, so thanks a bunch for giving us a little bit of time, man. Let me preface this by saying, Ken, very impressive performance. Qualified number 4 with a 363 with a 7. Got past a couple of tough guys. Paulo Juiced, Jason Lee, who we talked about a minute ago, going 349. And then in the final, took out Brian Markowitz, another guy that's been a big part of the small tire scene for a long time. Both y'all had to pedal. You ended up getting the win with a 376 with a 4. You've been running this lights out race for a long time. I don't know that you've been at every one of them, but you've been a consistent, you've been a staple down at SGMP for these big radio races for as long as I can remember. What was it like to finally get it done?
It was such a relief, I tell you. We won No Mercy before. We won the Magic 8 the other a couple months ago, but it was such a relief. And I'll tell you what, if you would have asked me that morning, I didn't think we had a chance. I was feeling okay about it, but John Sears, he just keeps telling me, every time I see John Sears, I tell you, this guy, he deserves a lot of credit because he keeps telling me, just stay focused, stay focused. Even in Pro Mod down in Florida, he was like, just stay focused, do your job. And I guess I got a lot to learn, but in racing this long, you think I would figured it out, but finally get that win. Yeah, it was pretty good.
Well, it's funny because I tell people all the time, and I was so glad Robert Hight in his top end interview at the NHRA Arizona Nationals, I was watching along online, and he said, and he looked right into the camera, Ken, and he goes, it is so hard to win one time, let alone doing it 2 times in a row. And I think that's kind of the point you're making. I oftentimes don't know that people really understand. I mean, it's hard to win a couple games of tic-tac-toe, right, in a row, let alone win 5 elimination rounds in a drag race in a car that makes 5,000 horsepower at varying times of the day. The challenge, you really can't overstate it. It's so significant. So I agree. Like, how hard is it to stay focused and to get that job done? You may run one round at 6 a.m. and one round at 6 p.m. or somewhere in between. It's such a moving target, man. What does that say about the group of people that you have around you? Whenever we had you on the show a couple of weeks ago, I guess actually during the DI Awards show, during your acceptance speech, you were quick to point out, like, Jamie Miller. I know he lives right down the road, a longtime friend of yours, but you've got a crew of guys that have given you a killer race car for a hot minute. I mean, is it, considering all those variables, I mean, you can't do it without them, right?
No, not even close. And if I look back, you think about it, September, we ran a Northeast Pro Mod race, and then we changed the motor in the Pro Mod. Went to Shakedown, won that with Pro 275. Then we went to NMCA, runnered up in Pro Mod. Then we went to Shakedown or whatever another race. I mean, we've been in 7 finals in the last 7 races, and it's the guys. It's not me. I mean, if anything, you know what I mean. I'm probably a hindrance because I'm so hard on myself with the driving, and I'm more of a half empty guy versus a half full guy. All my crew, Jamie and everybody, I'll be honest with you, when we were racing Jason Lee right before we went up there, I was ready to take the canopy down, and start packing up. And these guys are like, oh, we can do this. We can do this. And I said, well, I'm going to go up there and I try as hard as I can every time. I figure I owe them that. And these races down there, I tell you what, Ducks races, you look at the guys, Ron Rhodes, Dean Marinas, Jason Lyme, Stevie Fast. You don't go dominate this series down there because, number one, you have the number one qualifier curse that gets everybody in trouble.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but I felt so bad for Jason Lee and Ron Rhodes and all these guys when that happens. But you qualify at the different time. You run eliminations in a different time. The track changes so much. It's the hardest race, and people don't believe me, but I'm telling you, that's the hardest race to win is one of Doug's races.
I agree. And I think it's that moving target that makes it, every drag race is a challenge. And I always try to, like, anytime I start talking about how uniquely challenging something is, I'm not saying those things to make light of other classes or other races, but you're hitting the nail on the head, Ken, because lights out, that's a different animal down there, right? I mean, it really is. The cars are obviously on the ragged edge. They require a very, very good, tight racetrack out there to make a run regardless, whether it's a 349 or a 369. It takes a lot of racetrack to pull it off. And then you combine the fact that it starts on Wednesday or whatever, and you're running the car all week. I used to call it a war of attrition because it was really more about having a car that would start and idle come Sunday than it was having the fastest car. Can you talk to us a little bit about those challenges of racing at different times? I mean, sometimes I think, for as much as everybody seems to enjoy like complaining about it on the internet, I don't see a dwindling interest necessarily. I mean, you see a lot of heavy hitters down there with really fast cars. We saw a tremendous crowd on Saturday. Is that moving target? Is that what makes it fun a little bit, or makes it a unique challenge because you never know what you're going to get into when you roll through the gates of South Georgia Motorsports Park?
Well, yeah. So you think about it, a couple different things. One, I've been very fortunate in racing. You know, I've won Shakedown a couple times. I won Snowbirds a couple times. I won US Street 5 times in a row. I've won every race except for Yellow Bullet, and I struggle at Ducks races. So that tells you everybody wants to do good at Ducks. That's why everybody goes to Florida and tests. That's why everybody goes there on Monday and starts testing. Because that race is so hard because it just changes. So I went at it this year a little differently. I said, I'm not going to test. I'm not going to go to Florida. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to show up on Thursday. I didn't even show up on Wednesday.
Wow.
I didn't want to do anything except unload the car and go right to Q2. And luckily, Jamie, gave in to me on that. And because I believe if you go to Florida and you spend a week ahead of time in Florida, you're really putting Jason Lee told me it just right. They went to Florida, they tested going fast. What got Jason Lee, I believe, was his car was so fast, he couldn't slow it down enough. So testing really hurt him. And we didn't test. We just worked on our slow stuff. And once E1 happened, we tried something with the car, staging it in a different spot that was really unorthodox, and it worked. And we said, you know what? We're going to do that all weekend long.
Trying to stay on glue, on fresh glue more than likely.
Said to me that Monday, he goes, I wouldn't be surprised if you don't have some white paint on the side of your car when you get to the end of the track. But he goes, I promise you it's going to go down. And I said, whatever you want to do, let's try it. And we put that car right up against the wall, and it went to 68, which was low of the round. And at that point, I thought, if I didn't get Jason at night, which I thought we might, I said, we're going to be in pretty good shape, because I knew Markowitz was fast in the heat, and I knew Jason struggled a little bit. And once things slowed down and I knew Jason was going to be during the day Sunday, I thought we were in pretty good shape against him.
Yeah. I mean, you think about the guys that are there, and that any given minute they can throw down the gauntlet, right? Oh, but I think that's a really interesting strategy that I wonder if that will pick up, because man, that home run hitting, it's fantastic. And it gets the headlines and it gets the buzz. But the gang here and we've bitched about that for years, because we really have a genuine appreciation, and I'm not downplaying the significance of a record run, but going rounds and turning on win lights, man, that's, in my opinion, that's how you win a championship. That's how you become an icon. That's how you're here, for a long time. So we have a unique appreciation for winning races, varying conditions. I want to talk briefly about Jamie Miller. You and I have had a handful of conversations off the record about Jamie and his contribution. And I think people, because I think people hear us right now on the show, and in the future when they listen to this, will be like, Jamie, who are they talking about? Well, we're talking about Jamie Miller. And Jamie Miller is someone who I believe is kind of slept on in our industry as a world-class crew chief. I think that there's been some of these guys, and they've certainly deserved it, get so much ink and get so much publicity that he hasn't really gotten his due. And I'm hoping on the heels of this big win for you and the team down in Valdosta, along with the Outlaw Racer of the Year award, I hope we're able to really start to shine a light on Jamie, because when I look at the crew, the fly-in hired gun tuner game right now, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, Ken, but he's probably one of the only ones that could like put a car, like start to finish, weld it, put it on a chassis jig, build a car, put a motor in it, fix the motor, tune the car. He can do it all. He's a real Swiss Army knife out here. Am I wrong?
Oh, no. I'm a big fan of the Millers. I'm a big fan of Jamie. I've been for a long time. I knew him when he was a kid. He'd come by my shop and, look around and stuff. Oh, yeah. Yeah, when he was in his early 20s.
Because he's not very old right now, is he?
He's probably not much younger than me. He's probably in his late 40s.
Okay, he's still a young guy, yeah.
He's a young guy. So, but he was building cars back then, and he did work for me back 25 years ago. And I think the only thing that makes him so where he's not, because I think he's as good as Steve Petty. I think he's as good as anybody out there. I'm a big fan of his. But because his love for radial racing is probably the only thing stopping him from being a crew chief on a pro stock team or a whatever. I don't even know, Top Fuel, whatever. Because he loves radial racing so much. And that's where he grew up, and that's where he cut his teeth on. And this year, with the Pro Mod deal, we did really good. And, it really showed at the end of the year. We really got that car. And that car, he worked every weekend. He works on the car at his house. So after a race, he'll go there and tinker around with it and do stuff. But he'll do 4-link. He'll do if the header's got to get welded. There's nothing on a car that Jamie can't do. I mean, he's the best at it.
I think it's interesting because there's, again, not firing a shot across the bow here. Everybody calm down. I mean, my phone will melt down in a minute. But a lot of these modern day tuners are more about, they're bringing a laptop mat with them so they don't scratch up the roof of the car, and they're throwing that down and opening up the laptop and banging keys. And I get it. Absolutely an important part of it. But I do think it's kind of something of a lost art to be the guy that can like bust out a welding helmet, right, and fix those headers or, yank a head off of something. I mean, I've seen a lot of these tuners, not naming names or anything, but they're not diving into a swap engines. Your guys do that. I'll make sure. And hey, obviously it works. It's a recipe for success. But I remember Warren Johnson, when the tides were kind of turning in the pro stock landscape, he was one of the first guys to get really vocal about, well, now there's a lug nut specialist, a left cylinder head specialist, a clutch specialist. And, Warren Johnson came from a time when one, maybe two guys did it all, and I'm not saying we need to go back, and I certainly don't want to go back in time, but it is refreshing when you encounter someone like Jamie who has that wealth of knowledge and experience and know-how. I think it's cool and it's fun to see him having the success that he's having right now.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. He's him, Petty, Josh Ledford. Those are the guys. I think the reason they do so good is because they're gonna move weight. They're gonna give it limiter. They're gonna adjust the struts right in the lanes. They're not thinking about it because their gut tells them what to do, and that's why I think the pro line guys do so good. Is because they'll jump right in there and make those decisions. It's not just, I do power management, I do air fuel, I do traction control. They're doing everything.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your take right now on, kind of the status of, we talked a few years ago here on the show just about how there was this kind of new age happening right before our eyes of purpose-built door slammers, where you could call up, Rick Jones or whoever, Jerry Bickle, you could call the chassis shops, ring a phone line and build a car, a pro mod car that you could race in a variety of different places, right? You can run some big independent races. You can run PDRA. You can run Northeast Outlaw Pro Mods. Hell, you can run NHRA, you run the Carolina series. There's all these series. But there was also, you could change 4-link bars, change shocks, put radials on it, take the bars off, and go to run Ducks race. Or before that, or during whenever they still had it, NMCA had radio wars for a while. You could do a lot of damned racing. It feels like the tide's turning a little bit. We're seeing all these guys that were spending most of their weekends radio racing, putting big tires on. Kind of leads me to my next question. Will your focus in 2022 be big tire racing, or what's the next few months look like for your team?
Well, it's kind of the number one thing we want to do is we want to run for a championship, and we want to do it in Pro Mod. So Jamie and I, we talked about it with all our guys, Johnny, Dennis, Gary, everybody got involved, and we talked about it. And I think we're just going to concentrate on Pro Boost at PDRA this year. There's probably a good chance I won't go to the Sweet 16, and from there, we'll just start out with Pro Boost, and we'll do shakedowns and the yellow bullets and a lot of Northeast Pro Mod. I don't know if I'm going to put radials back on the car, to be honest with you.
Well, you kind of, and this is, I mean, we've seen it happen before. Keith Berry all but one lights out and hung it up, right? I mean, and I remember having a phone conversation with him, and he told me, he goes, man, I got to be honest, like it's hard. That was what I always wanted to accomplish. That was what I started out wanting to do, is win the big one. He did it. And it's like, I know that I don't have I don't want to go run Top Fuel. I don't want to run Pro Stock. And at the time, Pro Mod wasn't as hot as it is right now. I mean, he ended up hanging it up. So it's kind of interesting to hear you say that, because you've secured a win at the biggest small tire race there is and will likely ever be, or at least for the foreseeable future. It's not a huge shock to me. So I'll ask this question. Do you sense that? I mean, man, like 50 cars at the Snowbird Nationals, like 60 something at the US Street Nationals. Everybody is building a big tire car. Mark Mickey's got a brand new car coming out. We saw Mark Woodruff with his car. He had radials on it this past weekend, but I know that car is destined for a lot of big tire competition. Are big tires and bars back?
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I love Pro Mod. I don't know. The real problem is there's so many good places to race for good money, and that's one of the biggest problems we have, because we looked at a schedule. We could go to Shakedown, we could go to Sweet 16 in 2 weeks. A week after, we could go to Bradenton and run NMCA. A week after that, we go to start PDRA, and then Northeast is right behind that. There's so many places to race right now. That's not even counting the guys in the Midwest. I talked to a couple of people that were talking about they're going to run a lot of Midwest this year.
Man, I think that the people are, I got to be honest, 10,000 to win. What is it? 8 times a year? I mean, really good rule set. They go to great tracks. I mean, especially if you're not out on the Eastern Seaboard, it's an extremely solid option. I mean, and that's where we're skipping over NMCA Extreme Pro Mod. There's a lot of places to race these cars right now. And it's exciting, man. I think it's a generally positive thing, to be honest.
Oh yeah, Pro Mod is the best thing going right now, and I want to be part of it. I don't know how many more years I want to race as much as I think we raced like 25 weeks last year. I don't know.
Holy cow,
that much. But this year I want to just concentrate on Pro Mod. I'm committed to the Franklins and Tyler Crossno. I want to run PDRA. I'm going to 100% do that whole series. That is, I know, is a fact. And then what happens from there, I don't know. But Pro Mod is, I'm telling you what, that we went to World Street Finals. There was like 50 cars there, 5 rounds of racing. Then we went to Shakedown, Snowbirds, and then US Street. I mean, you're talking, there was 50, 60 cars at every race. And the racing is so competitive that a lot of it is on the driver. And a lot of it is on the crew, and it's exciting. It's exciting to be in the lanes and talk to Todd Tutterow. For me, these are a lot of the guys that I looked up to, Jim Halsey's and all these guys.
Yeah, man.
I want to finish out. I have unfinished business over there, and I think Jamie Miller feels the same way. He raced NHRA Pro Mod for a bunch of years. Yeah,
with Michael Bealey, who's another guy that I really miss seeing out here. And that was a team that people would kind of overlook every once in a while. Like I'd see that name on the list and I'm like, hey man, he's a threat, because you never know between those two when they may throw down low ET. Yeah, absolutely, man. It's exciting to hear, and I'm genuinely looking forward to seeing you seeing you out on the PDRA tour this year. We're big fans of what they've got going on out on the East Coast. Tyler, Crossno, Tommy and Judy Franklin, incredible place to race. I mean, we've been kind of involved with that series since the day one. So I'm looking forward to seeing you out at the East Coast Nationals. What is it? April 7th through 9th, the first race of the season. It'll be here before you know it, man. Hard to believe.
I know, and that's kind of what's holding me up on the Sweet 16 deal, is because it's too close. It's really hard to get parts right now. Luckily, Proline is really good at getting parts when you need them, but rods and valves and stuff are going to start becoming an issue for everybody. And I don't want to run PDRA, because you think about it. Last year, Daniel Ferris, Randy Weatherford, Rivenbar, that championship was settled by 1 round.
It's crazy.
That's crazy. So I want to be part of that. And I want to race those guys and see where we stack up at the end of the year. And I don't want to water down the program by trying to run too many races this year.
I mean, it speaks to really, this is a great way to round this out, because John Sears, a big time friend of the show, friend of ours here at Drag Illustrated, another guy that doesn't get, I don't know that he could get enough credit, to be honest, for his contribution to our sport, specifically small tire racing. But John Sears, his advice probably rings true right now. You got to focus, right? You got to focus on something and pursue that championship, man. And we're excited for you. It's been great to get to know you a little bit. Thank you for what you do for the sport of drag racing. If we didn't have guys like you out here spending money, spinning tires, we wouldn't have anything to talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike, JT, the entire world, let's give it up. Ken Cartuccio. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you being here, man. Seriously.
Thank you so much for everything you guys do.
No problem, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
All right, guys, we're headed into wrapping up the first hour of today's episode of the Wes Buck Show. Again, I want to thank you guys for being a part of this. Seriously, it's great talking to Ken. It's going to be fantastic talking to Mike Salinas. It's great talking to everybody that cares about drag racing. But the most important people that are involved with this whole rigmarole, it's you guys. It's the guys and gals in the comments. Click and share, click and like. So thank you so much for being a part of this. Remember, we will close out hour 3 with our, what's it called? DI After Hours, right? Our live Q&A session. So if you've got a comment, you got a thought, you got an opinion, something you feel strongly about, throw it in the comments and we will do our best to touch on it. I want to remind everybody that each and every episode of the Wes Buck Show is brought to you by our friends at Redline Synthetic Oils. Redline has a reputation with racers and hardcore enthusiasts for creating products that perform and protect better than any on the market, and they've been doing it since 1979. Whether it's your race car, your tow rig, your lawnmower, your motorcycle, when you think about lubricants, you need to think about our buddies at Redline. For more information, log on to redlineoil.com. Let's get this second hour of the show started. JT, Mikey C, what do you guys think of that, man? Pretty interesting conversation with our buddy, the serial killer. I didn't get to ask that, and I can't decide if he chose that name or if somebody else did. And I was worried about putting it in the caption. Because what if somebody goes to Google? What if Bloomberg is going to interview him about his business in 2 years, and they search it up and they find this article on Drag Illustrated about Ken, the serial killer Cartuccio? I'm
are you getting banned? You getting banned from Facebook 2 weeks or something? Yeah,
that'd certainly be my luck, man.
Interesting to see what he had to say about ProMod and his affinity for ProMod. You asked him, are big tires and bars back? And he was like, hell yes.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, that's just, that's what he said. I think that's where we are. And it's interesting to hear the guy that just won Lights Out 13, the biggest radio race of the year, say he's not putting radios back on the car the rest of the year. So it's really kind of just where this deal is, because that's where you've got to go race for the rest of the season. I mean, there's nowhere to have those radios on for the rest of the year.
Well, I mean, and it's interesting because I think what we're going to see unfold is that, because JT and you both made this point earlier in the show, that there's a radial championship series, like Donald Long's new Radial Outlaws series that he's teamed up with a bunch of different racetracks and put together this points earning championship tour. And I mean, I think it's going to be successful. It's already been successful. I've talked to a slew of racers that are committed to trying to win what will likely
guys like Ken don't seem. They don't seem like that's what they want to do. And I don't know about Jason Lee and these other big hitters, but it's interesting to see. It's interesting to see how it's going to play out. And this is going to be the first year where you're going to have that competition with that series. So,
and this is a good opportunity for us to discuss just briefly how we've heard about this a lot. Hey, are you guys doing the World Door Slammer Nationals this year? What's happening with that? This is why. To be honest with you guys, one of the main reasons is because there's so many great races.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many options right now, and we're in a weird time. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, my wife couldn't find cat food the other day. She went to the grocery store, and apparently there's like a cat food storage or shortage. Avocados are illegal now, I think. There's all these things happening in the world. And I've heard from a multitude of engine builders about, hey, I've got 10 motors all laid out, ready to go together, but I'm missing this, that, or the other.
Mm-hmm. We're going to run into that before the end of the season.
Before the end of the season, that is going to be a problem.
As people start to need parts, as they start to tear stuff up, that's where we're going to see it.
Well, and that's why I think it's even more significant. I'm glad, as much as you guys know how much I love to throw a party, I want to put on a race as bad as I want to take my next breath. However, I don't know that it's helpful at this point in time, man. I mean, there's a lot of great places to race. I mean, we listed off, we could fill up sheets of paper with the amount of good people and great places to race, great tracks, great purses, great rule structures. I mean, there's a lot of fantastic opportunities that exist in heads-up drag racing right now. And to throw another option into the ring, I don't know that it would be helpful. I think it may be more of a hindrance, especially to T's point, in July when you can't get a set of connecting rods. Maybe you can't get some pistons, you can't get whatever. I'm not trying to single out like engine manufacturers or hard.
No, it's
parts,
everything. I mean,
but
we
it's
had
going to
this
be
conversation in MPMC, with Pro Charger, and they like, what was it, in the last year they had like the last bearing, and it was sitting on Ken's desk and nobody was going to touch it, just in case.
One of their championship contending teams needed it.
Jose,
and,
right?
Yeah. To think about those type of situations, it's inevitably going to happen. We're going to be faced with that at some point this year. So I do think that that's probably perhaps one of the biggest double-edged swords that exists in the sport right now. So many great places to race. Absolutely overwhelming the number of great places to race. And I want to get one more script read in here before we dive into the second hour. We've got another hour and 45 minutes of drag racing conversation, guys. Click like, click share, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We got a whole lot left to cover. We haven't even touched on NHRA Arizona Nationals. Mike Salinas will be joining us any minute. And I want to remind you that each and every episode of the Wes Buck Show is brought to you by our friends at Stroud Safety. Stroud Safety is known for their top quality racing safety equipment, from drag chutes and seat belts to fire suits, gloves, and blankets, all 100% made in America. Log on to StroudSafety.com and make sure you tell them we sent you. A cool thing that happened with Stroud a couple of weeks ago, new NHRA rule, and I don't know if this is across the board, and I'm going to talk, I don't totally know what I'm talking about here, but I don't know if you guys were aware of this, that there's a new NHRA rule where your pilot chute it can't be black. Like, it has to be a bright color so that nobody runs over it. And if the track crew, doesn't miss it, it has to be I saw a couple of guys joking that they were going to spray paint theirs like neon yellow or neon green. But Stroud, our buddies at Stroud, they found out about this rule. Check this out. This is a great story. Found out about this rule, they've probably got some, their ear to the ground. They got some ins in the world, and they were made aware that this rule was coming down the pipe. They bust out super sweet red pilot chutes. You can see them, you can see them from the starting line. And it was just kind of funny to see a company react like that, react so quickly. And I know they've sold a whole bunch of them. So, hey, cool deal. Nonetheless, guys, we got to talk about the NHRA Arizona Nationals. And the first thing that I want to touch on, how about that crowd? We got some shots from the tower from our senior editor, Josh Hatchett, who was out there in the media room with his NHRA brethren. And it was like, he was sending us photos. They were like 10 deep at the fence. I mean, were you stunned? It was impressive.
And I think because that was the first event since 2020, right? Or they didn't even get a 2020 event. I can't remember, but there was a lot of.
It'd been 2 years, demand. I think. Isn't that what Josh told us?
Yeah. So there's a lot of pent up demand there. It's cool to see because we're always hearing about that place is going to be sold. It's going to be shut down. They're not going to have an event there anymore. So to really see those people come out in droves, and I just think NHRA is hot right now. They're on fire. I think they knew this going into the start of the season. We talked to a few people around there with all the momentum they have, the Tony Stewart deal, all the new teams in the fuel classes, Pro Stock's continued momentum, Pro Stock motorcycle. The whole deal is pretty hot. And I think we're seeing that in Pomona and Phoenix. I think we'll continue to see that. Gainesville, Charlotte, the next slew of big races to come. But a lot of cool stuff to talk about in Phoenix, and I think maybe we'll wrap up the end of the show with it. But some things specific to Top Fuel and Mike Salinas's win. We talk about the Top Fuel depth. We got some notes here. This is who lost in the first round in Phoenix. Doug Coletta, who was qualified number 1, Justin Ashley, Antron Brown, Austin Prock, Leah Pruitt, and then Schumacher, Forrest Langdon go out in round 2. And Torrance has not made a final yet. We talked about this, and it's only 2 races, and this guy's won 4 championships in a row. So we're not here to get on that bandwagon at all. But the increased competition in Top Fuel, we're already seeing it 2 races in.
This shit's bananas, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm serious. Like, I look at this thing right now, and JT, you got to agree. Like, when has been, I can't remember a time really in my life, a lot of watching drag racing, man, that Top Fuel is as exciting as it is right now. I sent you a text. We had this big chain going and everybody's chatting, and I sent T a text and I go, dude, you gotta, I mean, you're a diehard radial guy, a diehard door slammer guy, and you've never really paid much mind to nitro racing. Right. And I can't remember, it was like halfway through round 1. And I go, dude, this is legitimately incredible.
With all the different shakeups and stuff, I think that the NHRA, there's so many good storylines right now that it's hard not to pay attention.
And this is what we've been saying that they're missing.
Because it's like, you're right. It's what it needed. And you got all these different storylines. So you're going to pay attention, and it's great entertainment to watch. And it's something that sport needed, I believe.
And if you think about the quality of the show, right? I mean, one run after another, another, I'm going, man, we're probably going to need something to go wrong or something for somebody to bitch about, because I don't know what anybody could say about what happened this past weekend in Arizona. The deal looked good from start to finish.
It was great.
It was an absolutely fantastic.
We got some cool stuff too. I think some stuff maybe that you want to talk to Mike about, the call out deal going into Gainesville. What's going to happen with that, and just his performance on the starting line. We've got some notes about his performance on the starting line, his consistency. Obviously, we talked about Rob Flynn. Those guys have been living in the 360s, and let's praise Rob Flynn. That team has been really good. 2 wins in the last 5 races dating back to last season. And little tidbit that he credited Jose Gonzalez for his improved performance on the starting line. I would like to know more about that. And here,
well, let's do it right now, because I think I'm about to make eye contact with the scrapper himself, the one and only. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a rousing round of applause for one of our favorite people to talk to, the one and only Mike Salinas. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, how's it going? How you doing, guys?
Congratulations, man. Congrats, dude. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it a lot. JT, throw him up on the top there. Throw Mike in the basement. There we go. I want to be.
I'm now
we'll
the
be
second
out here in no
most
time
important
anyway,
Mike.
Right?
I want to be on the same level as Mike Salinas. That's like life goal, is trying to be up there with this guy.
Well, he's level higher now.
Oh yeah, he's moving on up, brother. Well, hey, congratulations on a hell of a weekend out in Arizona. I did not know this, so Mike, take me through this, what you just said, and ask Mr. Salinas about it, because I was not aware of this.
Well, this is something we got from Josh Hatchett, some inside notes that you worked with, or you credit Jose Gonzalez for working with you, your improved reaction times and performance on the starting line. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, well, Jose is training me in the pro mod. And basically what we did is, I didn't know how to drive a pro mod. I went out and darn near crashed the car the first time out, thought it was a regular car, and I could hear people on the radio yelling at me, don't hit the brake, turn, and I had it sideways at Orlando the very first time out. And Jose got the videos, and he called me that night and told me, I need you to look at the videos of me driving. I want you to do it exactly the same way. And wow. I'll give you some tips, and I'm going to train you because I don't want you to get hurt out there. And I thought that was pretty big of him. And Jose and I became really good friends, and we're teammates. So basically the way it works is he sat in my Top Fuel car, and he saw what I was doing in there, and then he also sat in my Pro Mod and moved things around and told me this works for him and for me to try it, and it worked. I'm still, learning how to drive that Pro Mod, which the biggest part for me is he taught me how to drive it straight. Don't freak out, don't get crazy, and don't touch those brakes. And I cut some nice lights. And won a few rounds and had some fun with the stuff. And I can only get better at it because working with Proline Racing, the way they set everything up, it's just amazing.
I gotta say, dude, this is bananas. I mean, your lights in Arizona, 064, 065, 079, 063. Like, what's it feel like, or how? You know what it does for me personally? It speaks to the problem-solving nature of business owners, right? You're an entrepreneur. You're a guy who's had to solve problems for a long time, and it's crazy to see you solve this problem because let's talk turkey here. You were struggling. You know what I mean? Like that. I remember you telling me, I'm probably the weak link. I am the weak link with the Top Fuel team. The car's killer. We go fast. We set records. And you felt at various times that you were the one underperforming. And to see you have an about face like this, Mike, it's unbelievable. I mean, I was just pouring through Drag Race Central right now going, you're the most consistent lever in the class right now. I mean, I know we're 2 races into the season and I'm not trying to jinx you or anything like that, but this is impressive. I mean, this is a big time move, man. Congrats.
Well, thanks. And you know what? My lights. So here's what I had to do for this race in Pomona. My brain works a little fast sometimes. So I slowed myself down because I ultimately want to be in the 30s and 40s. And I proved I can do it last year, cutting 28s, 33s, doing all these different crazy things, but consistently. With Steve, I must have blinked or breathed or something because you saw the numbers. I would have been all my runs would have been in the 60s, 61, 60, 64, 65, 66 right there. Maybe I choked with Steve or something, but and which I really didn't. But to take like what Antron's going to go through and Ron Capps are going to go through. When you own the business, when you own all these different things, just try to learn how to turn your brain off. It's not as easy as everybody seems to think, and you are right. Jose worked with me. Jose talked to me and showed me some other things. And it really, really helped me a lot, quite a bit. And Eric Dillard also. Eric Dillard jumps in there.
Another great driver.
Yeah, so I have a ritual that I do in every car that I drive that Eric and Jose taught me, and I use that on every run to this day.
Wow. I mean, and I think it's really impressive because as I go through these round results, Mike, I mean, you're pretty much the best lever amongst the best levers in the class right now. And that's a class of an eliminator in drag racing that includes 4-time champion Steve Torrance, Tony Schumacher, a living legend, Sean Langdon, an icon in sportsman racing, a champion in Top Fuel as well, Clay Milliken, one of the best to ever do it. And you're right there with them. It's incredible, man. And I just got to give you a lot of kudos for it because that's way easier said than done. I mean, you hear people say like, oh, you need to work on your lights. And it's like, well, yeah, no shit, buddy. I mean, we all need to work on our lights. But to see you put it into work, very impressive. I want to touch on something you just said. We've been having this discussion here a lot. As a business owner myself, I feel like I can relate to that. You think about this stuff day and night. Like I have a hard time sleeping sometimes because you're thinking about stuff or what's going to happen tomorrow or some big deal you're trying to get done. Is it going to happen? Let alone trying to get focused on race day. Let's touch on that a little bit because we're anxious to see ourselves here at Drag Illustrated. Who's going to rise? Who's going to be able to face the challenge of running a business, making this thing make sense on paper, making it happen, making sure you all arrive there. Because you know what it's like. Half the battle is just getting all the stuff to the track. I mean, you've got a truck that broke down in Idaho or whatever. And are you going to be able to, do you know who to call to get a rental truck, to get your trailer picked up, right? Those things all happen. And I'm genuinely curious if some of these guys that have dived into team ownership will be able to seal the deal. Do you agree that that's probably a bigger challenge than maybe most people are thinking it is?
Oh yeah, guaranteed. Like last year when our trucks left Pomona, they're headed home. One truck blew a front tire. The aftermath of that, he didn't hit nobody. Okay, ruined the bumper, ruined the hood. for a blown tire, $18,000 later, it affects everything that we're doing. That's 15 or 18,000 we could have spent on another case for a blower. Everything is dollars and cents in what we're doing. That's why you heard Antron when he blew a motor up. Well, that's going to be expensive. And welcome to racing. This is what the guys that are doing this stuff. Antron's a great guy. He's going to prevail. He's got a great mindset. It's easy to jump in a car and go drive. Alan told me something one time. He goes, the rest of these guys don't have to do what you do every day. They get to go home and go on vacations, and we get to go home and go to work. And he goes, it's tough to turn this stuff off. And look, I sleep 2.5 hours a night, 7 days a week. I can't turn this stuff off. But I love business and I love doing what I'm doing. I did racing because it was the only safe place that I could turn my brain off for a few seconds. And it was nice because, it's really hard. And think about this. I have 6 trucks on the road right now, consistently. They're all running around the country and we're growing. I have my daughters coming into more stuff and other teams coming, same like Richard. Richard's got stuff all over the place. Okay. Think about this one. Here's a good fun fact that hit me the other day when fuel prices went up. For me to drag all my stuff from Indy to Vegas is about $36,000 on fuel alone. Okay. Just fuel. That's with the low fuel prices. Now, when they go up, all the team owners, we're going to be spending about $50,000 for the same trip, So all these little factors, your tires, your wear and tear, your this, your that, your hotels, add it up. The sport is good. We're going to, this year will be the best year in drag racing for the fans and for us because it's unlike what anybody has ever seen. I think that the playing field is even and it's awesome, man. It's really cool. I'm looking forward. Here I go with goosebumps. I've got goosebumps, man. I heard there's a new term for it, full body chills, FBC. I've got them. Because it's an exciting time. I hear people all the time talk about like the glory days or I remember when. Bro, we're in them. Right now, we're in the glory days of drag racing. When I looked at that crowd, tell me about you've raced in a lot of different venues, right? You've been to some of these independent races. You and I actually met up at a couple of them and have bounced around a few times. I'm curious, what's it like rolling up in the water and strapped into your Top Fuel dragster and seeing a crowd like the team at NHRA had assembled there in Phoenix? I know NHRA, everybody, all of us love to bag on them, but by God, that place was packed. Yeah, they're doing Glenn Cromwell, all the guys, they're doing a great job. They are. Look, everybody behind the keyboard can complain. I made some comments about stuff that I think I would change. But I'm just one opinion. I do things a little bit different than a lot of people. I'm a longevity person. I want 10, 15, 20 years down the road, and you have to start now to make that happen. But the biggest dream for me, it's like a little kid walking into, the stadium and you see all the people. Okay. When they pull me around and I get to park, that was a dream for me. It was like, it awed me when I was able to see all the stuff that's happening and I'm the guy sitting in the seat and I'm lucky. Phoenix was full. I was impressed with Phoenix. And I think that all our venues from here on in, they're going to be jam-packed because COVID. See, there's a window of opportunity. Everybody's been locked down on this COVID stuff all around the country. Now that we're starting to loosen up, everybody wants out. But here's the opportunity. We have an opportunity to do something, and NHRA has an opportunity to do something because now everybody wants out. So you need to start not thinking business as usual. You need to think, okay, what can we do to enhance? We have a little window of this, and then it's going to go back to normal if we don't do something about it. We
have to get this enthusiasm, capture this enthusiasm, right? There's a moment in time, there's a wave, we got to get on it.
Oh yeah. Well, think about this one. Can you imagine every drag race being a festival? Okay. Put a headliner from music. We'll just, we'll put Garth Brooks out there. Let's bring a headliner in. Okay. Let's sell tickets, but let's do it during the day when the race is on. Let's find a venue where we can put up a portable stage, bring the guy on, bring in 20,000 more people that have nothing to do with drag racing. Integrate them with our people. Okay. So say a quarter of them stick at each race. That's how we have to think outside the box with these different things. But everything has to be like a festival now.
That's what people expect. I mean, you're out there on the West Coast. You got daughters. Like the music things that are thriving, the events that are thriving in the music space, Lollapalooza, Coachella, right? Yeah. The Electric Daisy or whatever they call it, Electric Daisy Carnival or whatever, the big EDM music festival out in Las Vegas that they have at the Motor Speedway. You're exactly right. We're kind of, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, we're beyond the day of people coming out. And, there's still people that'll do it, but people coming out and hanging out at the drag strip from 6 a.m. till 10 o'clock at night. People have a short attention span. And if there's some downtime, you're exactly right. You got to find some other way to entertain them. And we've got to find a way to bring some people from different walks of life. That's why we've been proponents of like No Prep Kings, because when I go to those no prep races, Mike, I look around, these aren't the people that I see at NHRA races. These are not the people that I see at PDRA races. These are not hardcore race fans, but they've got a passing interest in it. They've fallen in love with some character on the show, and now they're coming out. So bringing all these people together has to be the goal, trying to grow our sport, because I said this at the beginning of the show, and this is something, and again, I don't want to smack negative at all, but we have to shake loose of this survival mentality. I don't want to survive. I want to thrive. I don't want to maintain the status quo. I want to grow. I want to see the sport of drag racing grow. It's hard for me to get excited. And I think anybody, I mean, you're a business owner too, trying to make money. I don't want to talk about getting by. I don't want to talk about keeping things the same. I want to talk about doubling down. I want to grow this son of a gun. And that's the mindset that we're going to need to embrace, because you're right. There's an opportunity ahead of us.
Well, can you imagine? Check this out. Look at all the associations. Look at all the associations that are going around the country, PDRA and all the different ones that we have. Can you imagine? So when I went to your race, the World Series of Drag Racing, can you imagine NHRA, PDRA, all of them together at one time for one event once a year? That would bring a crowd that you wouldn't understand, and it starts on a Wednesday, and you earn the right to be in the finals. Something like that. And I expected, actually, Wes, I thought you would do this already.
Well, I'm telling you, I've got a concept for an event that I want to. We pumped the brakes on the World Door Slammer Nationals this year, mainly because there were some scheduling conflicts where the NHRA had tightened that gap between Phoenix and Gainesville to a week instead of 2 weeks. We used to have a little bit more real estate to play with there on the schedule, and I don't want to. I would have a hard time sleeping at night feeling like I had done something to detract from the sport. Yeah. I don't want to make people make a choice, right? I don't want to divide this group of people. Myself, this show, Drag Illustrated, we want to be a galvanizing force. Like when we get together, our mission is to grow and build the sport of drag racing by bringing this group of people together, because I feel, and this whole group feels, we can accomplish a lot more as a unified front than everybody off, kind of serving their own purposes. And you're always going to have that to a certain extent, but I want to get this sport swimming in the same direction. And that's why we felt it made a lot of sense to say, hey, there's like 70 races in the first couple of months of the season. We just had Ken Cartuccio on the show a few minutes ago, a front runner in the door slammer world right now. And he was telling us that it's like, man, there's so many places to race. He ran 25 events last year. He didn't want to race that much. You're trying to run a business. You got a family. You got a good marriage. I mean, you don't want to just throw it all to the wind to run every race that's worth running, because there's a lot of them. So to your point, I will tell you that we've got some stuff on the horizon, because I agree with you. I think there's a gigantic opportunity out here right now. Drag racing's hot. We've been in business for 16 years. And I don't know that I've ever been able to say out loud and actually believe it. I'm sure I've said it a lot, but actually believe drag racing's hot. Like our sport is hot. And that's an exciting thing, man.
Well, look, the powers to be in NHRA, they're doing everything they can. But you only know what you know. So here's what I do. When I have a leak at the house, I call a plumber. When I need a new roof, I call a roofer. Okay. When I have legal problems, which hopefully never, I call an attorney. My car breaks down. If I can't fix it, I call a tow truck. That's what I'm saying. We have to think outside the box, and the money part of this thing, to what they're thinking of. it's they're not I don't think they're seeing the big picture for what we can do. Can you imagine having a headliner, a Garth Brooks, a beer festival at the same time, and you bring in 50,000 people? You know, I don't know if anybody's ever sat and talked to Bill Bader. Bill Bader puts his Night of Fire on. Okay, it's amazing.
It's amazing.
Okay, and that's once a year. Now, can you imagine that traveling circus go every year, and every all year long, different place? Or how about this? A traveling Coachella. Think about that. All around the country. You know, for the people that didn't get to come across over here to see it. You know, there's other venues, but if you don't think outside the box and where we want to go, this year we're going to be just fine this year. Okay, where are we next year, the year after, the year after? Say we have the supply chain thing happen and we start slowing down on parts. Okay, it's going to happen this year. I'm seeing it already with outside other teams. I had 4 racers call me today asking for our used parts, and they said, I don't care how bad they are, we can clean them up because we can't get anything. Okay, and this is only the second race.
I talked to a guy the other day who scrapped 2 or 3 test sessions because he was worried about putting too many runs on the rods.
Yep, exactly right. I got some cranks came in Pomona, and I got offered from a racer, and I didn't take it, of course. I did something else with him. I gave him some used stuff, but he offered me $8,000 for a crank because he couldn't get one. He needed one. And I'm like, that's double the price of it easily. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, man. So we transitioned some of our older stuff to him, and he was fine with that. But this is where it's going. And look, we have to be careful. We have a lot of issues here. Drag racing is great. We're going to do good. There's a lot of people want to get out, but what's going to hurt us is supply chain, what's going on in the world. It's going to affect us indirectly, you know. I mean, so if we as a group collaborate and figure out how to do this stuff, I mean, it's going to make it a little bit easier, but we have to learn how to cut the cost of this, because what we get for winning a race is not even close to what we spend, you know. I don't have very many people sponsoring me. I have a few guys that help me, and it's appreciative. We're actively looking for sponsors right now, partners to work with. We have a winning team. We have everything there to go do it. You know, but we need some partners out there to help grow this thing. You know, I'm in 4 classes with all of our teams, and we're growing. We want to bring in another top fuel car next year for Jasmine. You know, so we want to do these things this year, but there's a point where we can't continue to do it out of our own pocket. So we are actively, you know, chasing down corporate America, seeing where we can go, what we have to offer, and what we can give them. NHRA is a good platform. They're doing a great job right now. You know, just like everybody, they need a kick in the butt every now and then to wake up. That's all.
Yeah, man. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that they're in a fantastic position because they're surrounded by a bunch of really successful business people, because virtually everybody that's in the pro pits owns their own business, small, medium, or extremely large business, who are problem solvers, right? Who have experience in different areas that they could lean on and leverage. And that's what I hope that there's some open-mindedness out there in Glendora, California, as well as Brownsburg, Indiana, because that's what our sport needs right now, because the time is now. And it's not, you're hitting the nail on the head, Mike, because I've had conversations with the guys a couple of times when they're like, man, we just want to try to get like 25, and I'm not talking about the NHRA, some other series. They're like, we're trying to get 2,500 people or whatever. And it's like, you need to be thinking about how to get 50,000 people.
50,000.
You need to be thinking way bigger, because even if you don't get that, if your goal is that low, or if your goal is to get by, or how many people you need to get through the gate to break even, it's going to be hard to stay excited about breaking even. It might be okay right now, but to your point, 3, 4, 5 years from now, you're going to get tired of breaking even. You're going to want to see this thing move in the other direction. So you got to think bigger.
Well, think about this. My number 4 daughter, Janae, took over our social media. We were at, I want to say 13,000 followers on Instagram. We went to 40 in less than 32 days. We went to 41,500. I think it was this morning. She did 3 videos on TikTok. One of them got 13 million views. Okay, 13 million views for a guy strapping me in the car and making the car jump up and down. Mark, he's my gorilla that ties me in there. But okay, now that's the other part of this stuff. NHRA, myself, all of our different groups, we hired that kid to do our business, to do our social media for our racing, and she's doing an amazing job. That's the future of where we're going, because when the partners ask, the sponsorship people ask for your media package, the first thing they go do is look at how many hits you get, what do you got going on, how many times do you post. You need to know the algorithms. You need to know all these different things, and it's just not crazy posts. It's what's going to enhance their business. How is it going to work? What demographics are you going after? I sat down with a couple of guys that were interested in coming in and working with us. And to be totally honest with you, I kind of put them in their place, because they said, we're going after this market. And I said, well, why don't we go after this market? You're going after this little market. I'm the guy that wants to go after the world. The world. I would rather do the world. Or let's start off with America. Okay.
Right.
If we can get America to pay attention to us, then we're doing great. But the social media thing. So right now, I think, and I talked to you a long time ago about this, every driver should have people with headsets so they can see what we're seeing, and they can watch their races on the phone. Okay. I understand NHRA is one of those companies that has to do this with people in the stands, but I guarantee you, if we do not change our ways, and my kids have showed me in my company, my values, my ways of doing business, okay, it isn't that way anymore. This is something that I truly believe is like a tenet of being successful in business. And I tell people, and this goes back to like the evolution of human beings. It's not the smartest who survive. It's not the strongest who survive. It's who are the most adaptable, who adapt. That is without question. That is the key thing. Who can adapt the quickest and the most efficiently and the most effectively. And we can't just do things because that's how we've always done them. That's the most dangerous words in the English language, because that's how we've always done it. It's a scary thing. Well, think about this one. Simple analogy. Remember when we first started off, we had pagers, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Who would have thought that our phones have like a computer? It has everything on it. They told me this years ago, and I laughed at them. Although I was one of the first guys in my town to have a phone that I carried around with me, and people looked at me like I was crazy because I was able to talk on a phone. Okay, I've been around a while. So think about this. If we continue to use those pagers, so most of the racing is still in the pager or the flip phone era. Okay?
I'd agree.
So we have to change that. Okay? Good example is my kids brought up a deal. So we have a porta potty business for porta johns and rental fence. So my kid said, let me try something. I have this idea. She went on the internet. She put us on this program. You get a quote in 24 hours. We got a quote in 24 hours. We hit 700 people who applied and checked. 60% of them ordered porta potties. And we were like, we never even saw that market. And right there, I'm smart enough to say, my time is past. I'm backing up. Show me what you know. And they proved it to me. And this is what I'm talking about. Everything that we're doing is evolving, and our sport is not evolving. Realistically, it's 100 and something thousand to run a race. Okay. We make 50,000. I really appreciate what they're doing. I understand the difference, but a golfer, the lowest paid golfer, okay, women's sport, makes $1 million when they win. Okay.
Yeah. And all they have to show up with is a bag of clubs.
Here you go. And so all we got to do is I've been around 41 years in business for the simple reason is I take care of my customers. I treat my customers like gold. We have a garbage dumps. So they come in, they dump their trash, and we give them breakfast in the morning with Chick-fil-A or, Breakfast Jacks, orange juice. We do this, right? Those guys have been dumping here for 41 years, different generations of them, because we take care of our customers. our new facility will be open soon. It will be automated, and it'll be a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week trash dump station. You as a tenant will have a credit card. This is stuff that I thought of 7-8 years ago. You'll have a card where you push it in the deal, opens up the gate, you go on the scale, you weigh, you dump, you go out, it bills you, or you pay right there with a credit card. Nobody in the office.
Yeah.
All it just and we're gonna double our volumes. We're gonna double everything. And that product, we're gonna move all over the country. That's what our goal is. You have to evolve. We as a sport are not evolving,
I agree, man.
So we'll get there.
We're headed in I feel like for the first time in a long time, it's headed in the right direction. And this is a good segue into something that I'm genuinely excited about. And I kind of got clued into that I think you're excited about. I agree with you. I don't think the numbers are where we want them to be ultimately, but a huge step in the right direction for the NHRA has been this NHRA All-Star Call-Out Shootout deal coming up at the NHRA Gator Nationals. That's probably my favorite race. God love the U.S. Nationals. God love the finals. There's a lot of great ones. Bristol. I mean, there's so many good ones. But man, the Gator Nationals are really, really incredible, to be honest with you. And I'm looking forward to going. And I was glad to see the NHRA step up and do something to really make this event stand out even more so than it already does with this All-Star Shootout deal. I made Mike. Can we bring Mike back on the show real quick? Because I think Mike knows all the details. Mike, can you real quick run us through the details of how that shootout's going to work? Because I don't know off the top of my head, and I think you did the homework this morning.
Yeah, it's actually based off of qualifying from last year and the championships. Actually, I think it continues through this year as well. And so Steve Torrance, being the champion from last year, is the number 1 seed. Brittany Force is the number 2 seed. I've got the rest of them here. Let me dig back in my notes really quick. Then it goes to Mike is number 3. Justin Ashley's number 4. Antron is number 5. Leah is number 6. Doug Coletta number 7. Sean Langdon number 8. So starting with Steve Torrance, he can call out any one of the other 7 drivers for his first round matchup. Then it goes to Brittany. She can call out whoever, as long as Torrance doesn't call her out. Then it goes to Mike. He gets to take his pick of who he wants to race in that first round.
So, Mike, my question to you, Salinas, is do you think anybody's going to play along? Are we going to get some? Because that's the biggest issue with these This happens sometimes. The NFL or the NBA or whatever, they try to do something cool and they can't get the participants to play along. Do you think, are you going to play along? Are you going to, given the opportunity, are you going to call somebody out?
Oh, guaranteed. I know. I got a pretty good idea who I'm going to call out, and I'm also bringing cash because I want to bet. I want to make it interesting. I want to bet. I mean, I've been to your races. No, you know what? And what's kind of cool. Okay, Sean Langdon. There's an article where he's talking about. I don't know who's going to call me out, but I'm going to make him pay. I love that. That's
right.
Cool.
It's
Sean,
good, right? That's what we need.
Good. We do need. I mean, if it was up to me, I'd like to have a brawl with everybody. Let's just go right there, But you know what? We'll do it on the track. But it's going to be fun, and the cool part is, like, look, everybody's talking about Steve and Brittany having a rivalry. Alan Johnson's over at those other guys' deal. There's a lot here. It's really exciting, and it's good. Doug Coletta, me, this, that, this other person, Antron, it's kind of cool. I mean, think about this. Okay. All the different players, everybody changed, and it's part of the business. Okay. We're all civil. We're all good. But when it comes to this stuff, we all want to win. And I'm looking forward to it. I don't know who I'm going to call out yet. I have a good idea who I'd like to, because it's I don't forget anything when people do things to me. and like Sean said, I want to make them pay.
Well, it's funny because you're a really nice guy. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was going to say, are you thinking more? Are those first round call outs going to be more strategic as far as maybe who's struggling right now versus who's hot? Or is it someone like, no, I've had it out for you for 5 years and I'm coming after you right now?
Well, think about this. Here's the part. We got to race them all. It doesn't matter. There is nobody a slouch in the class. I mean, it's sure somebody may be struggling right now, but The minute that you drop your guard and you think you got an advantage because that person has struggled at the last race, it's going to bite you. There is nobody. Okay, Steve blew his tires off when he raced me. Now, do you think Steve Torrance is going to blow his tires off in the shootout? No way. That guy's coming to fight. He's a badass driver. He's good at what he does. Great team behind him. Look at Grubnick. Same thing. He'll go out there and he'll pull a rabbit out of his hat. I mean, this is good for the sport. It's really good. I mean, I just hope more people. I want to bet on this thing, man. I'm just like,
I think they should make it, man. I almost made it mandatory at the World Door Slammer Nationals, because that's what you're referring to when we brought everybody down on the starting line and we made everybody draw names out of a hat to find out who they were going to run. And I remember J.R. Gray and Jeff Jones agreed to bet some money. I think they bet on every marker, 60 foot. From the starting line to the finish line, whoever's ahead every bit of the way. And it was awesome. And it gave us something to talk about. It gave the announcers something to talk about. It gave us something to talk about for years and years to come. And I'm just glad to hear that you're willing to play ball, because one of the things that I had a television producer tell me this one time, Mike, they said, drag racers are like too nice for their own good. Like, you go to these events and everybody's like your uncle. I mean, everybody. You know what I mean? Like, Mike Salinas is a great guy, and this guy's a great guy, and everybody's fun. And I mean, you're a family man, and I've seen you interact with your kids and your wife, and I know you're a good-natured, good guy. But like you said, when it comes to this shit, I mean, we want to fight about it. And I think we got to get people to be okay with it, because, you know, I know, what was it, Mike, 2 years ago that Steve Torrance pushed Cameron Foray? Yeah, and everybody got up in arms with it, right? Everybody was burning, setting him on fire on the internet. It was horrible.
Yeah, and on our end, we were kind of like, hey,
I called him and congratulated. Like, listen, I know Cameron Foray. He's been on the cover of Drag Illustrated. I'm a big fan. But, man, we need those moments. We need the fans at home or the fans on the property. We have to let them know how much we care. Because if we act laissez-faire about it, if we act like we don't care, well, on to the next race, guys, then they're going to treat it that way. But hearing someone like Mike Salinas go, I'd just as soon fight for it. That's awesome.
Or that this whole deal is going to be based on rivalries and not performance. That's what we want to hear, and that's what we need. That's what NHRA needs, and I hope everyone else takes that same approach that you are.
I think it's going to be pretty exciting, and nobody's saying who they're going to pick or any of that stuff yet, because we have an idea, all of us. But you know, to be honest with you, okay, I want to beat them all. Don't care. First guy I lost to was Tony Schumacher. I wish he was in the countdown, because I would pick him. Because I want to beat him. I cut a light on him, and I pedaled it at the end because my car broke loose, and he beat me at Sonoma. First guy I ever lost to, and he was the champion at that time. And I'm like, I mean, Tony, I want to beat him. I want to race him. You know, I'm going to go drive a pro stock motorcycle, beat my daughter. I don't care about the rest of the stuff. I want to beat my daughter. Same in the A-Fuel car. I'm going to drive the McPhillips' car one day just so I can beat Jasmine. You know, I don't care, you know, what the rest of the stuff. I want to beat people that beat me, because they set the pace. You know, it's kind of cool. But
you see that in the UFC, like guys that have they're the reigning champion, right? And you ask them, who do they want to fight? And they almost always name somebody that beat them early in their career. Like, man, I'd sure like another shot at so-and-so, because I would whoop that ass now. And it's like, we need some of that, man. And I appreciate you. I hope you know that, and we mean it when we say it. Thank you. Because so many of the people in our sport, they own their own businesses, right? They're professionals. They have other careers. And it seems like they leave the racetrack on Sunday and they turn off race car driver. They're back to business, and they can't be bothered for an interview. I literally had a conversation this morning with, I don't want to name names, but you would be blown away how many pro-level drivers turn down interviews, turn down media obligations, don't do it. And it's like, gosh, guys, I get it's a pain in the ass to get up that earlier. I know it's in the middle of the day, but this is the type of stuff that's going to take our sport to the next level. You think those NFL coaches want to face all those reporters after an ass whipping in the Super Bowl? No, but they know they have to. That's part of it. That's how this thing grows. So I hope you know that we genuinely appreciate it, Mike, not only today, spending a freaking hour with us, but I appreciate all these interviews you're doing and everything that you're doing to help take the sport to the next level.
I used to be one of those guys because I was so busy. But now I'm yours. I'm open book. I'm ready to rock and roll. We're ready to do this thing and put in what needs to be put in. And look, what I do in racing, is what I do in business. I mean, you guys, if I told you some of the silly things that I do, stay good with my lights. There's an old lady next to me this morning at a light, and I cut a light on her. I beat her off the line.
All day, every day.
Everything is I'm competitive more than people know with everything. Ask my daughters. They don't get to win for nothing with me, even since they were little babies. My wife asked me to let them win, and I said, no, the world's not going to let them win. They need to earn the right to win. Okay. And look, so, look at what we're going through. Okay. Everybody said I was done because Alan Johnson left. Okay. Good deal for them. Okay. Alan taught us a lot of stuff, did real good. He's over at Coletta's. It's just changing of the guards. It's what we're talking about. The flip phone moved to another place. That's all it did. Now we got a little, super phone. It's just another thing. It's part of evolving. We got to keep evolving and on everything we touch and do.
Well, you mentioned one thing, and we'll let you go. And I hope you know how much we appreciate your time, Mike. I know your time's valuable, and for you to spend an hour of it with us here on the Wes Buck Show, it means a lot to me and our whole team. So thank you. But one last thing, no problem, brother. There was one last thing. I got stuck in Qatar a couple of years ago with the gentleman that's now your crew chief, Rob Flynn. How proud of him. I mean, because we talked about this at the beginning of the show. You were counted out. Let's be honest. Headed into this season, a lot of people were saying we're writing you off, that time had come and gone, right? How proud of Rob and all your guys, right? Because I know you maintained a lot of your crew. Aaron, a lot of your guys hung in there with you. But Rob specifically coming into this role with all those naysayers and the pressure to kind of follow in the footsteps of Alan Johnson, I'm personally really happy for Rob to get this done, for the car to run like it has. And for you to be doing what you're doing, you've got to be over the moon for this guy, right?
Oh, yeah. No, you know what? I don't like bullies. I don't like people that trash on people, and, they just, they don't understand what it takes to do it. For Rob, I was a little emotional at the top end because I was really happy for my guys. This was, look, we didn't know how this was going to work. I know how I do things. I know how I set things up. All I know is if we follow the book of rule and we stick and we have discipline for what we believe in, we're going to do really well. We have a good running car. We had a good running car with a good recipe when Alan ran the car. Okay, he left. Okay, I get that. Now we're big boys. We have to get that recipe and let's tweak it and let's make it a little bit better. Torrance did it. I mean, he did really well with it after they left. Richard Hogan did an amazing job. Okay, Rob, I am so happy for that man. I am so happy for him because he is hungry. I seen a 16, 17-year-old guy in his eyes, and we talked about this. That man is hungry, and I will tell everybody this, and I don't normally say anything like this. I said it once, and I will say it again. Be careful. Be careful with him. That man's going to whip your ass because you guys counted him out, and you're going to pay. I guarantee. That man's going to do everything in his power. I hired that man. He sat in that trailer. He's been on those computers over and over and over. I'll ask him about a run, and he'll know that run, what the settings were on everything, from the clutch flows to everything. It has it in his head. So just that alone, he's hungry. And look, we didn't ask him to sit in the race car after we won. That man jumped in the race car. He's so proud of us. And like he told me, he goes, thank you for believing in me. And I go, you believe in yourself, right? And he goes, yes, sir. Okay. We all believe in each other. All my crew, I walked out of the trailer and they were doing the same thing when Alan was there and Brian was there. The car is being prepped the same exact way. We never changed anything. So the odds of us having a problem are very rare. We are going to come across and we will struggle here and there, but it's how we survive. The ideology and the methodology that, that they taught my guys. Brian came over after the race and he was really happy for us. And he said, the guys did really good. The guys did really good. A lot of the other teams came over. Aaron, this is his first race to win. I mean, second race as an assistant crew chief. You know how big that is for the sport? I mean, they should be doing a special on Aaron and these young guys because these are the guys. Rob's training them. Rob's teaching them. A lot of owners, a lot of drivers called me and complimented me. Said, "Great job, good showing, good for the sport, perfect." And that was nice. That was really nice of them, because look, at the end of the day, and I'm going to say this going into the countdown. I'm going to say this going into that call out. We whipped all of their asses. Okay. And I don't talk like that, and I don't normally do that, but it's call out time. So that's what we expect to do when we get there. And
well, man,
do the same thing.
I literally can't tell you thank you. And hell, you about had me crying. I've had goosebumps for a half hour now. And I agree with every single thing you said. To see Aaron Cave and what he's accomplished and how far he has come. He was a crew guy, one of many. Whenever I first met him, actually, when you were making your big your Top Fuel kind of as a top level guy a few years ago. It was the first time I encountered him. I think he'd worked for John Force Racing prior to that, joined your team, and to see what he has become, it's exciting, man. And to see someone as such as yourself be willing to invest in these younger guys. I still fancy myself a young guy. I'm not as young as I once was, unfortunately, but I really appreciate it, man. And I'm with you. I think Rob Flynn, I remember when he was tuning J.R. Todd's Pro Mod car, whenever Alanabi was still a big powerhouse in drag racing. And I thought a guy that was willing to tune a Top Fuel car, tune a Pro Mod car, he was willing to figure out any equation that was put in front of him and do it at a really high level. Those guys are dangerous. Guys that are willing to try something, to take a chance. I think guys like that are dangerous, and I'm genuinely happy for Rob, and I'm genuinely happy for you, Mike. Thank you so much, brother. We'll talk to you soon. I'll see you at the Gator Nationals, all right?
Hey, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Salinas. Woo! Dude, I want to take a minute here real quick and of course, thank Mike again for his time here. Very gracious with his time. This guy owns a multi-million-dollar business and runs a Top Fuel team, an A Fuel team, a Pro Stock motorcycle team, and everything in between. Races Pro Mod, and he still spent an hour with us on a Wednesday afternoon. I hope all of you guys appreciate it as much as we should. And I want to remind each and every one of you, how about the timing with the logo in the background, that the Wes Buck Show is brought to you by the team at Elite HP, the world leader in used race cars, racing engines, parts, and tools. Located in Fort Worth, Texas, Elite HP is operated by real deal drag racers with over 100 years of combined racing experience who can steer you in the right direction for all your racing needs, whether it's a turnkey Pro Mod, set of Pro Jacks, or something in between. Our buddies in Fort Worth can take care of you. Log on to elitehp.com to check out their entire inventory. Mike, JT, we're well into hour 3 here. Let's roll the tape for our DI after hours, and we'll take some questions from our friends in the comments. All right.
I don't think we have the tape anymore.
Oh, I deleted it. My bad. I deleted that segment.
I would,
Well, I appreciate it. I deleted that when I was cleaning house the other day.
Without you anyway.
Did you start drinking already?
I did.
Mike
was so good. Mike was so good. I just went
Lisa brought me a little delivery in my red line, in my red line tumbler.
Mike was right, though.
To Mark Beatty.
I was listening to something, he was talking about and the parody and how good everybody is. Clay Milliken this weekend wasn't even qualified, gets in at the last minute and then makes the finals. I mean, he's right. There's a lot of parity this year so far. And
I'm telling you, man, and I don't mean to shortchange anybody's efforts.
Two guys that no one had on their radar going into the season. We've talked about all these other guys, the young guns, new teams, and there's 2 teams that are independent teams that weren't on anybody's radar, so to speak, and just went right to the finals. My personal opinion is that there will be a day in the future when we talk about 2022. I really will. I think we'll talk about the way our sport has the resolve the sport of drag racing has shown throughout COVID. I mean, I've told this story many times. I remember rolling into the U.S. Nationals with you, Mike, in 2020, right? Yeah. Amidst, or 21. No, it was 20. Was it 20? Okay. Yeah. I remember rolling in there, and there's a national mask mandate. The NHRA's got a mask mandate. And I go, drag racing is not going to, these people aren't going to wear masks. These are right-wing conservative. They're not going to fall in line like this. And I remember rolling through the gates there, getting my temperature taken and signing all these waivers or whatever. And I looked around and I saw all these people that I knew are free thinkers, that don't like to be told what to do, wearing their masks because that's what they were going to have to do to go drag racing.
And they weren't, they wanted to go racing. So.
And that's how bad this group of people wanted to go drag racing. And I thought in that moment, this is just a microcosm. Like, this is a small example of how passionate and dedicated the drag racing community is. And I think that we are reaping kind of what we have sown in a positive way right here and now. And I truly think there will be a time in the future when we talk about 2022. And I don't mean to shortchange any prior champions, but whoever wins the NHRA Top Fuel World Championship in 2022 will be remembered for a long time to come. I think the same thing can be said for Funny Car and Pro Stock. I've got freaking goosebumps again. I'm going to have, I don't know if you can run out of goosebumps, but I got them.
That's why I had to start drinking.
Shut up. Quit picking on me.
You had goosebumps so many times.
Me and JC were back here in the green room playing the drinking game. And you know.
Well, it's true, man. I mean, this is a unique moment in drag racing history where there are innumerable front-running teams, and I think winning a championship this year will be something. It will be significant. It will be a legendary kind of accomplishment, because some of the names that we were talking about, actually, Mike Salinas, who we talked about losing his first round of eliminations to, Tony Schumacher. How good is it for the sport of drag racing to have a multi-time world champion back in the mix, to have the Clay Millikins, to have Steve Torrance, to have all these guys, Sean Langdon, Doug Coletta. God knows Doug Coletta's got a chip on his shoulder in 2022. He's finally got, a super tuner behind him. There's no telling what that team will be capable of this year. It's just exciting. And I don't know that admittedly, I got to admit it, I don't know that I've been excited about nitro racing to this level ever in my adult life, man. It's never spoken to me.
From Phoenix.
Okay.
Just to put a bow on that and kind of piggyback on what you're saying. We saw Robert Hight, 2 wins in a row. He's perfect for 2022. We talked to him on the show, and he mentioned in some other interviews, he went back to his 2019 tune-up when they won the championship. And they looked like they're out for blood this year too. 380s all year. That looks like the car to beat early on. Matt Hagan, number 1 qualifier, first number 1 for Tony Stewart.
Quickest run since 2018, 382 with a 3.
And
the quickest run in Funny Car
too. I think it was like the fastest speed in a year or more too, or something like that. Huge speed. I forget what it was. We just have the ET note in front of us here. Then full fields across the board. Good momentum going into Gainesville, which is always one of the most
and hey, there's a great segue here for us, because I think there's at least 22 cars, pro stock cars, pre-entered for the NHRA Gator Nationals coming up in a couple of weeks. There's rumor that there could be a couple of more added. We could maybe see 23, 24 pro stock cars down in Gainesville. What about that class, man? I mean, we've spent 2.5 hours or 2 hours talking drag racing, and we're just now talking about pro stock, which seems almost unbelievable.
Yeah.
Pro stock in itself, Camry Caruso winning her first round of competition. That was I got to be honest,
the 3rd woman ever.
They have done an outstanding job so far.
It's really impressive, man. I can't say enough about what they've been able to do. I know people personally who have all but sold their soul to the devil to go pro stock racing and have success, and to have them come out in their first race and qualify, but win a round in their second ever race and really look good, look like a contender.
Either top speed in a couple of the rounds or close to
they
it.
Were top speed at the first race of the season there in Pomona. They were top speed, 210 miles an hour and change, a brand new engine program from Titan Racing Engines out in Denver, North Carolina. It's just really, really impressive. And I'm so happy for Papa Joe Caruso, Mark Caruso, Camry herself, just that whole group. They deserve
Mark about
this,
tackled
man.
Everybody on the line, I think.
Well, I mean, how could...
I know.
I'm telling you, man, Mike and I have had this conversation, but you'd be hard-pressed to find a drag racer who hasn't dreamt about racing pro stock. I mean, that is a class that is a driver's class. It's crazy competitive. You're extremely limited, narrow confines to operate in, right? 2,350 pounds, 500 cubic inches, naturally aspirated, must run gasoline, 5-speed manually shifted transmission, clutch operated. It's a narrow window there. And to go out and have the success that they're having, it's fan-freaking-tastic for drag racing, because much like the situation that's existed in Nitro for the last couple of years, it would seem that you either had to be part of one of these superpowers, Elite Motorsports or KB Racing, to have a chance in hell of going some rounds or winning a race, let alone winning a championship. So to see Camry out there contending, it's a really cool thing.
I want to especially mean something, like you said, Mark is fired up proud dad. He's been around the sport for quite a while. He knows exactly what it means. And not saying that Camry doesn't, but her relative youth and the way she's moved up so quickly through these different classes, I think has kind of helped her not be overwhelmed by the moment and not have so much pressure on herself. She's kind of a cool customer anyway, always even, and Mark is much more excitable, but you can kind of see the family and the team get excited on the starting line and get fired up about it. And she's kind of like business as usual. I think that's a good combination that's helped them.
It's interesting because I remember my dad telling me, like, in this, I'm going to get some people pissed off here in a second, but I remember when I was a kid working at my dad's repair shop, and my dad built engines. My uncle WR actually would build engines for people at Buck Brothers, and it was a common thing. And he would always tell me, like, man, you want someone to get in there and run your race car and not care, not be caught up with what's going on, not be staring at the temperature gauge or whatever. Put a young woman in there. And he would just talk about how many examples there were, because there's like ignorance is bliss, right? Yeah. I mean, it's kind of true. And I think that's what I'm seeing in Camry. Not that she's ignorant. She's clearly aware of the moment, but I don't know that she hasn't spent 40 years trying to qualify in pro stock. She's not jaded yet, right? She's in there just kind of along for the ride, right? She's going drag racing, right? This is the car you want me to drive. This is the class I want to race in. And I think she's not in her head about it. I think, me personally, I would have a hard time.
So messed up.
Yeah. I mean, if you strap me into one of those things, I'd be thinking about, golly, how do I measure up against Warren Johnson and Lee Shepard and Bob Glidden? And man, I know all these people who have tried and failed, and all these people that have spent countless dollars, right? Burned millions of dollars trying to go pro stock racing. What am I doing? She just hops in that thing and acts like it ain't no big deal. And I think that's the secret weapon right now. It ain't no big deal. I mean, she just
front of a crowd, and testing's one thing, but then in front of a big crowd on TV,
huge
in
crowd.
eliminations.
Yeah, she's never seen crowds like that.
That's a tough deal. That's a tough deal in any class. So yeah,
let's talk about that all elite final round there. I mean, it's the thing that I get it. We're 2 races in, but when I look at Elite Motorsports right now, it seemed like
stepped up their game, I believe.
They have. If you look at 2021, those cars weren't qualifying at the top all the time, right? They were getting solidly in the show, and they were more focused on race day. And it would appear to me, with the way those cars are qualifying right now, Aaron Stanfield, TJ Coughlin, they had some electrical gremlins from what I understand, and were kind of chasing the thing all weekend, but still managed to go to the final.
Yep. He'll get it one day, man.
He will. He's this close.
I even said on Saturday, TJ looks good this weekend. I thought it was going to be his weekend, especially when he made it to the finals.
Whenever TJ, they made that run in Q3, those moments are underrated. People don't understand oftentimes the pressure that exists when you're on the outside looking in, going into the final round, and it's not perhaps ideal conditions. I mean, all these things, all these variables that exist in the sport of drag racing, to see that group of guys rise the way they did, from TJ Coughlin on down, Kyle Bates, Buddy, Kelly Murphy, the whole crew there.
Especially the driver there, though, because you realize what everybody has sacrificed to put you in this position.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure on him, too. There's a lot of scrutiny on him.
He's Jeg Coughlin's nephew, right? I mean, like his uncle is, I would say, arguably one of the best ever drag racing drivers. I mean, Jeg Coughlin Jr., I think he's one of the best ever. And can you imagine operating in that shadow, driving a car, the yellow and black Jeg's car?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of pressure. And I think he's handled it extremely well. And this is going to be, I predict a breakout. Not that he hasn't had a breakout year. He's been in the mix, but I really see a breakout year coming for TJ Coughlin.
What about Stanfield?
Holy shit.
I mean, a driver from hell, but he's got the car to beat, too. His 650 with a 2 on Sunday was the quickest pro stock run in 2 years, if you don't count Orlando. But as far as actual NHRA competition, damn near dipping into the 40s. That car is on rails right now.
He's trouble, bro.
First weekend too, right?
Yeah. Aaron Stanfield looked good late last year. He's always looked good. What are we talking about? I mean, this guy was winning. He was in contention to win both the factory shootout championship and pro stock last year, if you remember, and got the factory shootout championship locked down. This is a guy that sees the tree a lot. He races a lot. He comes from a generational drag racing family. He eats, sleeps, breathes this stuff.
New father.
He's young. Is he a new father? Oh yeah, he is a new father. Congratulations.
I think during Pomona, right?
I think that might
Like
be
right
right.
after it, wasn't it?
Or right after, or like
Oh man, he's enjoying getting away from the house. Yeah, no wonder he's enjoying these days away from the away from the house right now. But you're right, man. Aaron Stanfield looks like trouble. Mason McGahey, his dad, Chris McGahey, looks good. Dallas Glenn, what a deal that was, right? Car fell off the Projects or something and smashed his foot. He went to the hospital, got stitches, managed to come back.
It could have been a lot worse.
Oh my goodness!
I don't have any of the details.
Then we saw him go red.
I don't.
After that, I believe. Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, another contender, Kyle Koretsky. I thought, man, I was scared there for a minute. They had that issue where the car wouldn't fire last in Pomona, and those teams like that, that's rare air. That's one thing that you see from those pro level operations. And honestly, I've often pointed to this as the secret to some of Stevie Fast Jackson's success when he goes outlaw racing is that pro level maintenance approach, that pro level preparation approach that a lot of those teams they haven't been there, right? Stevie has been there. He knows what it takes to race against world-class competition. And KB Racing, that's not a team that's going to have a car not start very often. Same with Elite Motorsports. That's not a team that's going to have something fail or a car not start. So to see, I was worried there for a second because it looked like Kyle's car wasn't going to fire up. Fortunately, the old girl fired right up, and he got to make a run. But another guy that's going to be a problem all year long. It's exciting because I know that we've already had this discussion, but it's worth mentioning. We are not but a few years removed from people saying pro stock was dead. Truly. I mean, that was just a few years ago that everybody was trying to put the final nail in the coffin. And here we are. And it's probably the healthiest class in professional drag racing.
And back to the fuel classes, short fields and fuel, top field, especially looking like it was struggling. And by Josh Hatchett's measure, we could have 13 or 14 event winners in the field in Gainesville. So it's not it's not only damn near a full field of past event winners. It's not just also-rans or fillers
who's
or
list,
leakers,
right?
Whatever you want to call them. The whole field is nearly chock full of past event winners. So
one of the other things
competition is at an all-time high level.
It's got to be. One of the other things Salinas was talking about was social media and promotion and all that stuff. I had a conversation this morning with a guy, and we were talking about I was asking him what his impressions were 2 races in to the presence of Tony Stewart Racing, right? Like we're 2 races into a NASCAR Hall of Famer, a NASCAR champion, an IndyCar champion, making kind of his full-blown presence felt in NHRA competition. And I asked if he had any takeaways, and he said, man, what I'm really seeing and what I think we're going to continue to see from Tony Stewart is all the off-the-track stuff, the presentation, the focus on the media, the video production, the production really is what he pointed to.
Format. We even saw like a different type of press release format from those guys.
Yes, right.
After the kind of a quick hits deal, which we don't see.
And I thought that was interesting because he didn't say like, oh man, this guy's fiercely competitive and he's gonna determine to win. He didn't say that he's a guy that likes to qualify on the pole and that's the kind of mentality. What he told me is that he feels our entire sport, specifically the nitro ranks, NHRA Top Fuel and Funny Car, Tony Stewart Racing is raising the bar as far as what's going to be expected from a media standpoint, press releases, social media, videos, all those type of things. He thinks that's going to be the biggest difference. And I'm anxious to see how that unfolds. I think there's going to be some opportunity out there because the pressure's on to put your best foot forward and act the part, right? Look big time. It's time to look big time. Not that our sport hasn't, but now that we have all this momentum and we've captured some attention out there, we've stolen some attention, I think, from other motorsports and other sports in general. It's time to capitalize right now, man. I mean, I'm anxious to see. I really am. To consider all these competitive cars that you just talked about and the fact that there's still room for growth, it's an exciting time to be alive. It really is.
No doubt. I want to know, JT, what kind of shirt is that, man?
Yeah, what is that?
Yeah, is this like a Fresh Prince shirt or what is that?
Golf Gods.
Okay.
Golf Gods.
It's actually got, like martini glasses, bar. It's got naked ladies on it.
I had it in my notes
crazy,
to reference your Redline oil hat.
On it. Yeah.
Where's your Redline oil hat? The one you were wearing yesterday?
It's in there.
Well, I had it in my notes.
Dude, I would play 9 holes at lunch.
Today?
Yeah.
It's
You're not
nice
supposed to
out, huh?
tell your boss that. You're not supposed to tell me that.
What does it
You-
matter if I go eat or play golf?
Well, no, I guess
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. So
Is
Well,
it
no
nice
wonder
out
you didn't
there?
reply to my text message. I was like,
No,
JT, are you back from lunch? And he didn't reply because he was
Lunch with
golfing.
JT is 2 to 3 hours. So, you got to give him a good
it
window
is
there.
not that long.
It's a solid hour, though, right?
Right.
You got to get mayonnaise, ketchup, ranch dressing, sour cream.
I'm all about condiments, y'all. I mean,
Yeah.
like, like I wanna
T's
dip,
big on
dip it.
condiments.
And, yeah, you got to mix it. And, yeah. And
You have to.
yeah,
JT, do we have any cool
it's 72
comments?
degrees.
Do we have any cool questions that we can touch on? I was going through my notes. I knew we wanted to talk a little bit about
A
the
lot
sport.
of talk about. I'll run through a couple.
Yeah, please.
A lot of talk about the Auto Week article with Salinas, and I think he touched on that. But the other thing I want to say about Mike and kind of his response to that article, he's excited about NHRA and about drag racing right now. We've got to seize the moment, but the future is really what the concern is. What happens, like he said, next year, the year after that, the year after that, the year after that.
But it's also, I'm going to probably piss somebody off with this, but quotes can so easily be taken out of context. And I got to tell you, as someone who's made my living writing stories for 7, like longer than that, almost 2 decades, it's so easy. If you can lead someone down a path, you can accomplish whatever. I mean, look at the news media right now. I mean, if you turn on Fox, they're going to take the same quote and make it mean something here. You change the channel to CNN, they're going to take the same quote and make it mean something there. It's
Absolutely.
a very, very tough thing to contend with. And I think it's great that he's willing to be vocal. That's what we need really out here. And you can tell he's made a huge investment in the sport of drag racing. He's hiring guys. I mean, that was probably my biggest concern during COVID. Man, what's going to happen to all these crew guys? And when the world comes back around, what are we going to do? Because I was scared that we were going to lose. A lot of these guys were going to lose their jobs. They were going to go off, get a job driving a truck, or they're going to get a job doing something else. And when the world kind of turned back around, all these race teams that had let all their good guys go, we were going to be struggling. And it was guys like Mike and many others that kept their guys on their payroll and kept people employed. And it's really important. And I think we're reaping the reward of that right now, man. What other questions did we have in the comments?
We just saw this right here that the No Prep King rules came out and they've added weight to the Pro Charger cars. Imagine
shocking.
That. Yep.
Man, what can you say about the Pro Charger combination? I mean, that deal it's the new screw blower is really what it is. Wherever the Pro Charger goes right now, it ruins everything. And I say that in a positive connotation. Like, that's not a negative thing. But I remember it used to be turbos. Wherever the turbos show up, they end up dominating. You can't slow them down enough. Screw blowers, same story. Wherever they're allowed, they tend to upset the apple cart. But right now, man, Pro Charger across the board, a dominating force in the sport of drag racing right now. What do you think, JT, the goal is with that? They're trying to slow down specifically Ryan Martin and a couple of those guys and make sure the nitrous combinations. Mike, you're close with the Musi camp, Pat Musi. What's been their take on that? That's probably going to be music to Pat Musi's ears.
Yeah, I'm sure he's happy about that. I just think it probably comes down to consistency too. I think that the nitrous cars, we've talked about this a lot, have to run it on the edge to compete. And I just think that in that world, that consistency rules. And Ryan Martin won a championship, basically just getting down the track time after time after time, and being one of the quickest cars out there.
He's pretty well dominated.
I see it kind of mirroring. I think that they're going to keep an eye on what they do in NHRA. So I think, kind of mirrors what's going on over there. And Pro Charger dominated there as well. It makes sense to me. I don't know what the details are as far as the weight or
I don't either.
Anything. We probably won't get those.
Kevin may know in here, but
those exact details. I did see. I kept.
They did have winners. Yeah, Kevin states here in the comments. No Prep Kings had winners with every power adder.
They did
last year, so that's good.
I don't think the parity is that far off in that class, and I think everyone is.
The track's the equalizer there,
yeah.
So
I want to close with this. I know one last time, I want to thank everybody for being a part of this. We say it every week, but we mean it. Your involvement, your comments, your likes, your shares, you're subscribing to our channel on YouTube. It makes all the difference, and we really appreciate that you guys are a part of this show. We joke that this is Drag Racing's water cooler. Every Wednesday, we all meet up at the water cooler to talk shop and tell stories, and we genuinely appreciate each and every one of you guys for being a part of it. Thank you very much. But it's funny, guys, because there's a a fun way for us to kind of end this episode of the show, but it's a little bit concerning because I just pulled up NHRA.com and clicked around for a few minutes, and there are 11 Pro Mod cars entered for the NHRA Gator Nationals. How alarming is it to y'all that, I mean, if you think back 4 or 5 years ago, the tables, it just shows you that everything changes, right? Now we've got more Top Fuel cars, funny cars, and Pro Stock cars than we hardly know what to do with.
Yeah.
And there's 11 Pro Mod cars entered for
possibly
the Gators.
Even fewer. We saw today Lyle Barnett made a post. His sponsor for the Gator Nationals is not going to come to fruition.
A car,
yeah,
Lyle's your man.
And I don't know what he had planned for that or what was going on with that, but that's concerning. I mean, Lyle Barnett is one of the more visible stars in that class going into 2022.
And there's some names on this list, Mike, there's some names on this list for the NHRA Pro Mod Series first season opener that we haven't seen in a hot minute. I mean, Tyler Miller, son of Russell Miller, who owns Darlington Dragway. Russell is a wonderful human being, and Darlington Dragway is obviously an iconic facility. His son is returning to competition. He's going to be driving a second car alongside Ricky Smith, Tyler Miller, Sidney Frigo. We missed Sydney through most of the COVID crisis, most of the global pandemic, because international travel was so difficult. I see Sydney's name on this list, and you think about, Jason Scruggs is on this list. There's obviously some familiar faces: Ricky Smith, Doug Winters, Jose Gonzalez, your reigning champion J.R. Gray, Justin Bond, who really made his presence known in 2021. Jericho Balduff will be there with his 69 Chevelle, but man,
is Lyle really on that list?
Lyle's actually not on the list. Oh, okay. So, I mean, I guess that's a good and bad. I mean, I certainly want to see his name on the list, but the fact that it's not, and there's 11 cars, it's just funny how one thing you can always count on, right? Things changing. Changing.
We'll see, man. I think that's been the concern. That's the one spot where.
Well, hey, and I just got a text from Mike Salinas, and he'll be there at the Gators running Pro Mod. So thank God for that. So that's 12 cars, but it really just does tell you how things change. And it's interesting because we spent the first hour of the show today talking about how hot Pro Mod is. The NHRA is going to have to address this. I really do. And I don't think the answer is racing 8th mile. I really don't think. I think it's a short-term solution, potentially. But I don't think it's to go back to what
they can't. It would just look freaking awful.
It would look awful
in front of that, and everybody else running
is on that list.
1,025.
Was Stevie on that pre-enter list?
No, he's actually not on this list. Okay. So Stevie Jackson, surely he's going to be there. So that's 12, 13 cars counting Mike Salinas and Stevie Fast. But still very concerning, and I don't think it has to be this way. I'm trying to wrap my mind around it because I don't know if it's payout. I don't know if it's treatment. I don't know if it's a combination of the two. I don't know if it's, what's the other word? Publicity, not being a part of the main TV show. I don't know what it is, but something's got to happen quick, fast, and in a hurry, man, because you look everywhere else in our industry, Pro Mod's the strongest thing going. I mean, if you look at the Snowbird Nationals, they had 50 cars. They were turning people away. The U.S. Street Nationals, I think over 60 Pro Mods were entered for that. The PDRA seems to be birthing new Pro Mod cars in Pro Boost and Pro Nitrous. There's so many of these cars. We see people building new ones. Mark Mickey, longtime supporter of ours here at Drag Illustrated, M&M Transmission. Shout out to some of the real deal OG homies. They just brought out a brand new Pro Mod car, or at least news broke. Good looking.
It is good looking.
And I love that.
Not even like blue, but wow, that thing looks good. Right?
I'm an anti-blue guy. Jason Carter. I love Jason Carter, and I love that legendary Chevy Malibu, 221 miles an hour, every little bit of it. I love that car, but I'm a no-sell blue is what I call it. I mean, you want to have something sit on your lot for 16 years, paint that old girl blue. But that baby, that light blue, it's called something. I can't think of it, but light blue with the white hockey stick stripe, really good-looking car. Mark Mickey's new Pro Mod car from Larry Jeffers. That thing is good looking. We saw Craig Miller behind the wheel. Not Craig Miller. Craig Miller's an old Outlaw 10.5 guy. Craig Sullivan behind the wheel of it this past weekend in Valdosta. But, I mean, Pro Mod cars seem to be coming out of the woodwork, yet 11, 12 of them are slated to be at the NHRA Gator.
We're actually going to dig into this.
They didn't listen to the drivers, though, when they were voicing the concerns. I mean,
we've got a piece coming out. We've got an online-only piece that we're working on right now. It's going to be out before Gainesville, sort of exploring this topic, talking to some key players, a little NHRA Pro Mod preview. So stay tuned. We'll drop the link in here. I'm sure it'll be out by next Wednesday. And check it out. Maybe we'll have some feedback on that.
Well, and Mike Salinas just texted me as well. He goes, man, they got to quit picking on those Pro Charger cars. Give the other guy, try to speed the other cars up. And I think there may be some.
What we were just talking about.
One of the issues, something that happened, and I know that. I mean, honestly, I think the writing was on the wall. We had our race down in Orlando, and we saw Justin Bond go out and set the world record, right? Make the quickest run ever in a legal Pro Mod car. And there was like 3 rule. Well, they did nothing. Initially.
It goes back. Everyone went to the Pro Charger, and then it's the combination and a half, and it's kind of running away. And then you put rules on them, and now you're slowly losing those guys. It goes back to
you can't make 3-4 rule changes in one season.
And when they were too, they were allowed too much ground to start.
Too generous, too early.
Yeah.
Too generous, too early. And I think that they're paying the price for it now. And I mean, it feels like there's a lot of opportunity right there. I've always looked at the NHRA Pro Mod Series as being kind of like the final frontier for fast door slammer racing. Like that's where you want to be. That's who you want to race against. That's the series that you want to be a part of. But I think there's some fault to go around. I mean, I look at last year, they didn't have a banquet. That chapped my ass, man. I don't know why it upset me. I'm a banquet guy. I know that sounds silly.
Not a buffet guy, but a banquet guy.
I'm not a buffet guy. I'm not big on buffets at all. I don't need that many things in troughs, but I am a banquet guy. I think these men and women deserve to be celebrated. They deserve an opportunity to see their name in lights and walk up on a stage and get treated special. I think they deserve it. And I get frustrated when I see racers not participate. It pisses me off every time I go to a banquet and I see number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or whomever not show up to the banquet, because man, these things are for you and you can't want them and then not show up for them. You can't have it both ways. And it's frustrating because I was so shocked at the end of last season. I was waiting for some pictures or some video footage or whatever from the NHRA Pro Mod banquet. Well, there wasn't one, and how do you get guys excited about, being the one that collects that check or grabs that trophy if you're not celebrating them, So anyways, it's a very interesting situation that I can promise all of you that we here at Drag Illustrated will keep our eyes on as we move forward. Guys, is it time to wrap it up? Are we out of questions?
I think so, man.
All right, guys. Let's pull the chutes. I do want to
new Stroud orange pilot chute.
Oh yeah, Stroud. They're red. Stroud makes them red. I want to do one more script read and shout out one more of our partners here before the end of the show. The Wes Buck Show is brought to you by FlowRacing.com. If you're a drag racer or a drag racing fan, you got to get on board with Flow Racing. The world leader in sports live streaming, Flow Racing provides unlimited access to drag racing's biggest events like Donald Long's Lights Out 13, just went down last week, as well as Sweet 16, No Mercy, every stop on the PDRA and NMCA National Event Tour, the Funny Car Chaos Series, World Cup Finals, and the fast approaching. It'll be here, but it'll be October before we know it, November before we know it, the Streetcar Super Nationals out in Las Vegas. So log on to flowracing.com/Drag Illustrated and sign up. Make sure that they know we sent you, because what they're doing for our sport is truly, we cannot overstate it. It is so amazing. We talked about it at the beginning of the show. The fact that you can watch live drag racing on your iPhone, your Roku, any smart internet connected device. It's a pretty cool time to be a part of the sport. So guys, thank you so much for taking the time. I think this was a hell of an episode. Huge shout out to Ken Cartuccio, also to Mike Salinas for being a part of this. Mike gave us a bunch of time, man. I didn't expect to get that much time with Mike Salinas. And thank you guys, dude. This was a good one.
Yeah, man. That was an awesome one.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Remember, the Wes Buck Show is live every Wednesday afternoon, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern. Log on to dragillustrated.com for all sorts of drag racing news, insight, information, and everything else. And log on to dragillustrated.com to subscribe to the greatest drag racing magazine in the history of the known universe, Drag Illustrated. Thank you, guys. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, everybody.